Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst of friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me on the Monday night episode is Dave McDonald, fresh off a Cavaliers win. Didn't know they could do that.
Fuck out of here. Yeah, well, when your team is sitting at home on the bench, I guess you got to take your shots where you can, huh?
I mean, I'm a Wizards fan, so like.
Oh, okay. Well, your team is definitely at home on the bench.
Yeah, like that. I honestly have not even followed basketball in well over 15 years. Like
wow.
Could not care less about basketball.
Okay.
I mean, the most I know about basketball is because I'm in a couple 3-sport leagues, but I just perpetually suck at basketball in those 3-sport leagues.
That's fair. I mean, it'll at least get you like some it'll force you to watch a little bit if you care about that league, I guess. But
it doesn't. I don't watch all. Yeah. No, like I just don't care at all. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like my brother-in-law is a big Warriors fan and he watches them quite a bit at home. So like I'll see some basketball like when he's watching something. But like I honestly I could not care less. Like I just
please tell your brother-in-law from me with sincerity to suck it. I hate the Warriors.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Second least favorite organization in sports after the Yankees. So
okay. Yeah.
But there were some good battles back in the day, and the Cavs got a championship in 2016, and I don't think they're going to get one this year, but it would be nice to. I think they'll beat the Magic for sure. They're up 2-0, but then they face Boston after that. I think it would take slightly less than a miracle to beat them. I think they can do it. I'm definitely not planning on it though, unfortunately.
You could tell me they won the NBA championship this year, and I wouldn't even know.
See, I was a basketball kid growing up. Like, I wasn't a baseball guy. I played baseball. I was okay. Basketball was definitely my sport.
I played basketball growing up, and I followed basketball fairly closely. But I mean, when I moved to the West Coast, like I just stopped caring because I wasn't gonna pay money, for the NBA, package and stuff like that, and and I couldn't get Wizards games, and the Wizards suck. Like if the Wizards were good, like maybe I would care a little bit more, but they have sucked for a really, really long time. Oh, and the Giants close out the victory. There we go.
So what you're saying is you're a fair weather fan.
Oh, when it comes to basketball, absolutely. When it comes to football, baseball, I'm with my teams no matter what.
Yeah, no one would call themselves a Redskins or a Browns fan unless you were an extra.
Yeah, like I'm gonna watch the Commanders, watch a football team, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, right.
Ruin some poor kid's career on Thursday night. Like I will be watching live as they destroy either Drake May or Jaden Daniels' life and career. So by taking them second overall. So yeah, I'm there for. And I mean, I love hockey too, but again, I stopped following hockey when I moved to California because I just can't get the games out here.
Yeah. NFL draft is one of the couple things a year that we get all the boys together for. So Tony's coming to town. Jake's actually going to come to something. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to it. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I host a day, Jake hosts a day, and then Marcus hosts a day. So it'll definitely be a good time. We have like a dozen people that come by. So yeah, we've been watching since high school or college. I can't remember when we started that tradition, but we've been going for like 20 plus years strong.
Yeah, I'm a big NFL draft guy. I haven't been as in tune with it the last few years just because baseball kind of takes priority over everything nowadays. Kind of as a full-time job, but love the NFL draft. Love seeing the hopes and dreams that my teams can dash really, really quickly. So we got a lot to cover tonight.
Yes, sir.
We're going to be talking MLB news. We're going to be playing a little game of Are You a Believer and some hot starts. Talk about some closer chaos. Talk about some prospects. Really jam-packed show. If you are listening later on in podcast form, it may be broken up into multiple episodes, so they'll be coming out probably over the course of the next couple days. If you are listening on the YouTube, you just get one huge fucking chunk. So let's start with some news, and we're going to start with Frankie Montas going to the IL with a forearm contusion. This is not your typical forearm injury. Got hit with a comebacker. Sounds like it's a short-term thing. Are you holding on to him?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I didn't really give this much thought because I don't own Montas anywhere. I was not really interested in him, but obviously this is like a fluke injury. If you're in a 12, I would move on. I mean, I'm just assuming there's something better on the wire, but if you're in a 15, you're probably holding because you probably don't have anything better, and he's probably not going to be out too long.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in deeper leagues, you're probably holding on. In shallower leagues, if you can find an equivalent on the waiver wire, I'd probably move on to it anyways. Montas pitching Cincinnati scares the crap out of me, especially as things start to heat up anyways. So might be a good time to just get from under your shares in your shallower formats. Pete Fairbanks goes to the IL with a nerve issue. I have never been a Fairbanks guy. I just don't trust the health. Don't trust Tampa Bay. The health has clearly been a problem for him. He has looked awful this year. Are you just dropping right now on Fairbanks?
It's so tough. I mean, yeah, the consortium is also not we're not Fairbanks people for sure. Just can't stay healthy. He's had that nerve issue that comes and goes. He says it's only an issue in cold weather, so it's never been an issue when he's in Tampa. But you could tell something was wrong when he was in Colorado, and I had a feeling something like this was coming because then he blew a save after that, and he looked real bad. I heard from someone that they thought it might be thoracic outlet syndrome. So if that's the case, that's bad. If you're in like NFBC, you have until this weekend to get more information. If you're in a 12 though, like if you're in Fantrax and you can drop him and pick up Jason Adam, or you can drop him and pick up like Piamps or an actual closer who's out there, I would do that. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to in like 15 teamers because there's not a lot of options out there.
Yeah, we'll talk more depth about the Tampa Bay situation. I don't mind dropping in your 10s and 12s, especially if there are other options out there. And we're going to talk a number of other options as the closer chaos has started already this year. It's already been a worse year for closers than it was in the entirety of last year, and we're only in April. So a lot to talk about when we get there. That's what in the business what we call a tease. So Wade Miley goes to the IL with elbow inflammation. Wade Miley, we hardly knew you. I mean, you just got here and now you're gone.
My boy Marcus has an irrational love for Wade Miley. I don't know, but I mean, I'll give him this. He sometimes in a pinch when you need a streamer, he can be solid, but there's nothing to hold on to here. He's got a case of the olds, and he's probably not going to be very relevant this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wasn't picking up Wade Miley to begin with. I got an argument with Paul on Friday about it because he was all like, "Oh, Wade Miley." I'm like, why? Why would you do that to yourself? Like that's just a poor life decision, personally. But yeah, I think he's a pretty easy drop if you had picked him up. Louie Varland, one of those guys that there were a lot of people in the industry who were really, really intrigued by Louie Varland for no particular reason other than like he throws hard.
Oh, there was a particular reason. Did you notice that the interest spiked right after Phil's draft board came out?
I mean, here's the thing. Well, though, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to take anything away from Phil because a lot of people do look at what he does and go like, "Hey, like I'm, interested in the same guys as Phil because Phil knows what he's doing." That being said, like there has been a love affair with Louie Varland for a few years now, and I've never understood it because the dude cannot keep the ball in the yard, and that continues to be a problem. He's now been sent down. Are you holding on to Louie Varland anywhere?
No, and I'm not saying, by the way, that I care what Phil does.
No, I know, but
he's wrong way, way, way more often than people realize. He's an elite in-season manager. His drafts often leave a lot to be desired. If I'm being honest with you, he makes mistakes. I mean, we all do. He's a great player overall, but drafting is not where if you're going to copy him, that's not the part of him that I think is the best part to copy. I mean, Varland's down. You can't assume he's going to be back anytime soon. And even if he did come back up, it doesn't mean that he's going to be fixed. He was getting unlucky for sure. I mean, 404 BABIP, 64% left on base, but he wasn't getting swinging strikes. That's the thing. Like last year, 12.5 swing strike rate, 12.5% swing strike rate. This year, 7.5. So I definitely think this could be a situation where you kind of monitor how he is in the minors, and at some point later in the season, he might be interesting, but you're letting go for now.
Yeah. There's no reason to hold on to Louie Varland at this point. I've never really been a fan. I did get some cheap shares this year, but they were easy cuts, so I'm not stashing him anywhere. Max Kepler, my boy, he's returning. You picking him up anywhere?
No, I don't think he was really dropped anywhere other than maybe like 12s.
Yeah, some 12s, yeah.
Nah, I don't really. He's kind of one of those guys who people always think he's gonna bust out and he never does. I don't know. It's just perpetual tease. Kind of curious to see how the playing time situation shakes out there because they called up Larnick, for him earlier when he got hurt. I don't know. They could probably both play. I mean, they both started today. But Buxton sat. So, are they going to have like a rotating? I mean, Carlos Santana's not really doing very much. Maybe they sit him most of the time and play Kirilloff at first. What do you think?
That's what I would do. I mean, I think at some point, like, you got to.
Well, I mean, at some point, Buxton's obviously going to be back on the IL.
Or Kirilloff will, or a million other guys on this team that seem to always get hurt will. So, like, I think it'll work itself out one way or another. But I think Kepler's defense keeps him in the lineup more often than not. And, he never turned into the guy I hoped he would. He never turned into a 30 home run bat, but like he's a mid-20s bat with a decent average, couple chip in stolen bases here and there. So like I think he's fine for what he is. 15 team, fourth outfielder type guy. I got no problem with that.
Okay.
Heston Kjerstad getting the call. He is dominating AAA. I mean, absolutely dominating AAA. I think I saw it was like 30 RBIs in like, I don't know, 15 games or something, like something ridiculous like that. What do you expect from Kjerstad? He's obviously going to be one of the big pickups of the weekend. Are you going to be targeting him? I don't know how the playing time shakes out in Baltimore. Like, I don't know exactly where the playing time is going to come from. What are your thoughts on Kjerstad coming up?
Well, my thoughts are if you're in a league that you have like first come, first serve pickups, he's probably already gone, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I got him in 1 out of 4 Fantrax leagues because honestly, because like you said, the playing time, I didn't think he would get the call this soon. Obviously, for me, I think it's one of two things. Either Mountcastle is headed to the IL or they're going to do some kind of rotating bench because they're not going to sit O'Hearn versus righties. Versus lefties, he can play. But I mean, unless they make Mountcastle a short side platoon guy, they're probably just gonna have to rotate a day off versus righties between, all these guys between, probably Santander and, all of the outfielders and first base types, O'Hearn, so he's Cowser, might sit a game here and there. So I don't, it could be kind of an ugly playing time situation, but if he plays, 5 out of 6 games, he's really good. I mean, this is a guy he is a top prospect. This is not a guy who's like, okay, he was hot, but there's not much there. He's got 10 homers in the minors already. Him and Loperfido are the only two who reached that mark, but he's also hitting 349. Like Loperfido is struggling with contact. He only has a 21% K rate. You have to be interested. So if he's playing anything close to full time, he might be a guy that I'm targeting pretty heavily this weekend.
Is he eligible?
I don't know. That's the one thing I don't know.
Because I want to say he was going to be UT eligible coming into the season. So I'm gonna
I think so because that's what he's eligible at in Fantrax. So I assume it's probably the same because he only played. He only played 4 games in the outfield last year in the majors. He played 9.
UT only.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not that I care about that, but there'll be certain teams that you can't pick him up in, right? Like, if you have Shohei Ohtani, you're not picking up another UT only guy.
Well, but I mean, I think he's going to gain outfield eligibility within a couple of weeks.
You're going to wait. You're going to spend $150, $200 on a guy that you can't use for the first 10 days you got him? At least 10 days?
Yeah, no, it'll be longer than 10 days. It'll probably be 3 weeks. I mean, it's a long season. I don't know. I'm saying it's a consideration, but I don't have many teams where I have a util only guy.
Yeah, I guess it's fair. I mean, I caution people too much on like going crazy. Like, I don't think that Kjerstad is necessarily a guy that I know he was dominating AAA, but like he doesn't necessarily have the best hit tool. There is a ton of power in the bat. I have questions about the defense and whether or not they're going to, continuously play him in the outfield. So I'm a little concerned. Like this is going to be one of those that like, yeah, he's probably worth a decent sized bid, but people are going to go $200, $200+, and I just don't think he's worth that. To be honest,
That's totally fair. I guess I was thinking more in the $100 range than $200 range. He's not the guy that I want to go all in on. I guess I can say.
I think he's going to be a guy that other people want to go all in on. I just don't understand where, like I said, like I don't know where the playing time comes from on a daily basis. Unless you're right, unless Mountcastle is going to the IL, then that's probably where the playing time comes.
It's either that or they have 5 people for 4 positions and they all just take turns taking a day off. Could be that kind of a situation. But we have seen the Orioles in the past use Mountcastle more or less as a short side platoon guy. So that is possible. As weird as it would be, because he's hitting pretty well. Actually, I think very well, if I remember correctly. I think he's hitting over 300 and has a couple homers. But I don't know. We're all speculating at this point. We'll find out this week.
Yeah, we'll find out very, very quickly. But if he is available and you have a fastest finger kind of league, or where you can do daily, fab or something like that, go grab him now. Otherwise, Fabapalooza this weekend, baby. All right, Merrill Kelly heading to the IL. This is a bummer. Luckily we got the news that something was wrong pretty early on in before kind of Fab went off on Sunday, and kind of got the news he's going to hit the IL before lineups locked today. So you're able to get him out of your lineups. You just holding on to Merrill Kelly?
All I know right now is they said it's a shoulder injury that'll require a 15-day stint, but they're hopeful that he'll be able to avoid a 15-day shutdown, but we all know what the term hopeful means, which is nothing. So
it's a Terry's major strain.
Oh God. Okay.
Which I believe is usually like a 6-week injury.
Yeah, I was gonna say if that's tough. I mean, obviously in 12s you can probably move on, and 10s, but in 15s it's a judgment call. Depends on if you have any other stashes. Depends what else is available. I don't own any Kelly, so I don't have to make this decision, but that sucks.
I only have him in one spot, and I'm pretty sure it's like my best team too. So.
Jake is the same situation, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like my auction championship team where I'm like 8th or 9th overall, and so like I'm gonna have to make a decision on that one pretty quick. Luckily for me, I don't have to make the decision until next Sunday, so I have at least a week to kind of figure out and hopefully get a better timetable. But I don't have a problem with people dropping him if you're in a roster crunch. Like I love Merrill Kelly, but he's not a world beater. Like you're not going to lose your league because you dropped Merrill Kelly and someone else picked him up.
Yeah.
So Alek Manoah has a good start in the minors. Yariel Rodriguez heading to the bullpen. They're going to probably have a tandem relationship, which means you want Rodriguez. Is there any world in which you roster Alek Manoah? Because after what he did to me last year, I can't do it again. That would be an abusive relationship of like just unbelievable proportions.
So I don't carry things forward from year to year.
I don't usually, but there are just some beatings that you just can't forget.
I hear you. It's true. I won't ever forget what Austin Gomber did to me one year. That is fair, but that was also a Coors pitcher, and that was stupid to begin with. But yeah, I just don't think I see Manoah being successful. But like, if I were to pick him up, I'd pick him up and stash him on the bench, and I would need to see multiple good starts in the majors before I would ever play him. I'll say that. So, and it would only be in 15 teamers. I would not be interested in 12s or less.
Yeah, I just won't do it.
That's fair.
I won't. I'm not after what he did. Like, I mean, just the way he fell apart so quickly without any sort of skills degradation, like tells me like this is just a mental issue or largely a mental issue. And I can't trust a guy like that.
I think it's also that he's a big guy and he probably struggles with the pitch clock like a lot of the big guys have. So
yeah, but there's a difference between struggling with a pitch clock, like Lance Lynn struggles with pitch clock.
Nestor
and
Cortez struggled with the pitch clock.
Yeah, like
there's a bunch of guys.
There's that, and there's what Alec Manoah did to my ratios. Like, that was criminal. He should be in jail for what he did to my ratios last year.
He bent them over and said, "Who's your daddy?"
He said a lot worse stuff than that.
Said some stuff about your mom too.
Yeah, fuck. Taijuan Walker is returning this weekend. Do we care?
No, it's the thing you care about is that Turnbull's going to the pen now.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of has like, that's not super surprising considering Turnbull's coming off of like no innings pitched in a long time. So like, I kind of get it. If they're a tandem, Turnbull would then be the follower and could potentially do like a Ryan Yarborough type, like, massive win season in like 3 or 4 innings since.
Did you see that? Because
I'm just saying if he could.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying, it might be a good idea to hold on to Turnbull for a week or two if you have the room. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is going to be there. Ideally, I kind of stay away from those tandem situations, but I get that they have value because you're going to have a better shot at a win that way. But only if the guy who pitches first is good. So, Manoah starting before Yariel, Taijuan Walker starting before Turnbull. How bullish are you that either of those two are going to have a good first 3 or 4 innings? Exactly. So
I'll hold on to both Rodriguez and Turnbull just because I think their skills are good enough where, even if I'm not like getting a win, I'm at least going to get like a bunch of strikeouts, which, and hopefully some decent ratios. But I'm also not going to have a very long leash on those guys. So like, if it doesn't seem like it's working after a couple weeks, then I'll probably just cut bait and go on to someone else.
Yeah, and it all depends on who's available. If you can get a Jose Soriano kind of guy, I'd rather take a shot there.
Albert Suarez, baby.
There you go.
Great stream today for me. Hendricks to keep a spot in the rotation over Ben Brown. Why?
Yeah, it seems like they're probably just trying to limit Ben Brown's innings because he wasn't going to be pitching significant innings this year anyways, I don't think. But I don't know how long of a leash they're gonna give Hendricks because they said we expect Ben Brown to make a lot of starts for us this year. Like after demoting him. So I don't think he's necessarily going to the bullpen full time. Because part of my thought process was, well, maybe they make him the closer, Alzoley's struggling, but Neris has been terrible this year too. Leiter's been good, but they don't seem to like Leiter as the closer. I don't know. We'll see. But Ben Brown has phenomenal stuff. Like he would be an ideal closer, honestly. I don't know.
But team's always going to give a guy a chance to start because you just get more value out of a starter.
Yeah, I do think that they probably just need him to be a starter more, which is why I'm guessing that they don't use him as a closer. But I'm still holding on to Ben Brown for now in my 15s. Not in 12s.
I mean, this is the last year of Kyle Hendricks' like atrocious contract. So like I don't see them just because he's kind of a legacy guy. Like I don't see them like DFAing him, but
I think they're trying to win. At a certain point, you have to play your best players. Right now is not that point, but a month or two from now, if he's still struggling this bad,
they could just put him as a long reliever. Like he can just do mop-up duty. So
they could. Yeah.
Like just because I don't think they'll DFA him doesn't like, and maybe this is a question for Sarah Sanchez.
Yeah,
our resident Cubs person. So, but like I just don't see them just DFAing him. I would say like they just put him in low leverage. Like he just comes up and mop up duty at some point. So he doesn't need to stay on the rotation. That's for damn sure.
Right.
All right, Ozzy Albies could return as soon as Friday. That's fantastic news.
Yeah, if you own him, it certainly is. My friend Marcus was very, very pleased by this. He's a lot of Albies. I have none, so I was okay with him missing some time. But
the only place I have Albies this year is in a 30-team keeper league with 100-man rosters, which means when he went down, I had no like I didn't even move Albies out of my second base spot. Like I didn't have anybody I could put in there. Like it's just sitting there. Like okay. Fine, like nothing I can do.
Taking a 0, I'm shocked. I guess it wasn't as bad as all what they were reporting early on, but hopefully he doesn't come back too soon and then like just injure it further is the thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're going to put him in a position to do that. Like they, like
Really?
don't get me wrong.
A lot of teams do that a lot of times, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there was no surgery required. It wasn't displaced or anything like that. So
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't come. He doesn't come back soon because I love Ozzy Albies. I wish I had more of him, but I just didn't end up with him in any real drafts. JD Martinez could be up as soon as Friday. This is really good news for me because I've got a lot of JD Martinez that I've just been fucking waiting on.
Yeah, I've got like 2 or 3 shares too. He was just going so late.
Yeah.
I have him in my main event. Yeah, I will be very, very happy to see JD back. Now, hopefully we get, legitimate JD Martinez because he's been slowed down by his back a lot already. I don't know. I haven't really been checking to see how he's been doing in the minors or even if he restarted yet after getting shut down with the back injury. So, but hopefully at some point in May, hopefully he starts to become JD Martinez again. And if so, this is a guy who had 33 home runs last year, 270 average. Like he's a dude. So he's a guy who can be a game changer for you if you're lacking some offense early on.
Yeah, he's played 3 games in just A-ball, hitting 273, 385, 364, no home runs. But at least he's playing. That's all that matters to me. So
yeah, he's got a double. Okay.
Yeah.
He's in A-ball, so I don't know, but
he's just getting swings under his belt. Maybe would you throw him into your lineup? Let's say they say he's gonna be in the lineup on Friday. Would you throw him in your lineup for the weekend?
Who would I be putting him in over?
Keith Cole.
Yeah.
Colt Keith. I always fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. Colt Keith. I'd probably put him in over Colt Keith. Yeah.
But you're not putting him in over Miguel Sano.
No, probably not.
No. Uncle Ted saying Sano kidding cleanup is interesting. It's interesting to a point. He's still Miguel Sano.
Yeah, he's hitting the ball really damn hard. So
he always has. It's just the problem is he doesn't always hit the ball.
Right. Yeah. He's kind of like Kyle Schwarber light. You're going to get a shit average, but he can hit 30 plus bombs if he gets the playing time. So it just depends on what you need. Yeah.
I was a big believer in Miguel Sano for way too long. So far hitting league average zone contact. So if he's going to do that, and like you said, if he's going to play regularly, which it looks like he could on the Angels, especially with Rendon going down, he could be interesting. I would ride with it for a little while until the wheels fall off. I assume they will at some point, but
so he's another guy who's util only right now, but he's tracking towards third base and first base eligibility at some point in the next 2 weeks, probably. But it might be a little while before he gets one or the other. I think he'll get third base because it looks like he's going to be playing there most days while Rendon's out.
Yeah. We'll talk a little. We're going to do a big closer section, but let's talk a little bit of closer stuff right now because Matt Brash is going on rehab, should be back here soon. Do you think he gets into the closing mix in Seattle?
Yeah, they're not really using Munoz as the closer. He's more like the high leverage guy. So it doesn't seem like they like anybody else there, particularly like Stanek's gotten a save or two, but I don't. Yeah, I think Brash will enter that picture. They have Santos coming back at some point too, but he closed, but I think that was probably more closing because he was on the White Sox and they had no other real options. I think Brash is legit closing up. He has legit closing stuff.
I think he is legit closing stuff. I do worry about the health. I also worry that I don't know if Seattle's going to even have a guy. I think they may just go with kind of this, matchups and putting guys in the best possible spots because that's what teams should do. We don't want that as fantasy managers, but they should put their best guys in the most high leverage spots, and that's what Seattle looks like they're going to do. So I wouldn't go crazy, but. If you want a spec, there are worse specs you can make out there. I had Anthony Bender on my roster for a few weeks thinking he might get the job, and that's clearly not happening. So, all right. Bradish and Woo are both on rehab and could be returning soon. Over under 2 months for both of them.
In terms of how long they last?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it okay? I know what Bradish is, but what's Woo's injury specifically? I kind of forgot.
I think it was forearm soreness or elbow soreness.
Elbow? Okay. I'm more bullish on Woo being okay than Bradish, but you're probably okay. So Woo had a really good 3-inning stint where he had 5 Ks, no hits, no walks, nothing, like perfect. Bradish, on the other hand, his latest rehab start, he went 3 1/3, 4 earned runs, 6 hits, 3 walks, a hit by pitch, a wild pitch. The fact that he has no control is telling me that he's probably still not right. So I definitely I'm more bullish on Woo than Bradish.
Yeah, I'd be more bullish on Woo, but I've never been a Woo guy. Shout out.
I like Woo.
How I Met Your Mother fans.
Wait,
And
what?
I said shout out to How I Met Your Mother fans.
What for? What? I didn't miss that.
Have you ever? Did you watch the show How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah, just not like
there's a whole episode on the Woo girls.
Oh, okay.
Girls who get drunk and yell out "Woo."
Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar.
Okay, so that was just a reference for those people. But yeah, I've never really been a Woo fan. Generally speaking, the elbow issue last year scared me off of drafting him this year. Now he's had a reoccurrence of it. That being said, if I had to pick between the two who I thought was gonna pitch the most innings the rest of the way, it is Woo, because Bradish has a tear in his UCL. Like there is a tear in the ligament that will likely not end well.
No,
I don't think it's going to end well for Woo either. But if I had to pick between the two, I guess I would take Woo. I'm not running out to the wire to grab either guy, though.
Fair enough.
Colorado has 4 games in Coors and then 2 in Coors on steroids, which is Mexico City.
Yeah.
Are you just like rostering every single Rockies guy that you can?
Yes. It pretty much like in my Yahoo leagues where a bunch of guys are still available because it's so shallow. Like I picked up like Elias Diaz where I'm streaming catchers. I picked up Brenton Doyle. I think I even have like a Charlie Blackmon somewhere. I mean, we saw what happened in Mexico last year. It's only 2 games, but these could be like huge games.
Yeah,
and I'm also staying away. I'm staying away from. Yeah, obviously you're staying away from Colorado pitchers. Don't play Houston pitchers either. I'm pretty sure it's Hunter Brown for one of them, which you're probably staying away from him anyways. And then the other game is Ronald Blanco. Do not do that. No. Honestly, I mean, I guess in 15s you're not doing it, but if you're in daily leagues, I'm benching Josh Hader where I have him in daily leagues for those 2 games. I don't want any part of that stadium, okay?
And that's probably fair. Yeah, I mean, I did my Fangraphs chat this morning, and somebody asked me, like, hey, like, I was thinking of starting Elias Diaz as my util just because...
Starting who?
Elias Diaz.
Oh, yeah.
As my utility, just because he's going to be in Coors and they're going to Mexico City. I was like, you know what? Normally I would tell you not to do that, but I think the Mexico City one, like that makes it worth it. I mean, like I think he could hit 2 home runs this weekend, so totally fine with that. All right, let's.
Mark D in the comments said the Rockies can't even score at Coors. RIP. Mexico City is Coors
like
on
playing on the moon. It's like there's
so,
like no gravity. Like it's just
even they can hit there. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be they're fun games to watch, especially if you like scoring. So not if you like pitching though.
No.
All right, let's move on to the good question of the night, which is: are you a believer in some of these hot starts to the season? Let's start with Jordan Westberg, who I've gotten a number of questions on. He's just been crushing the ball early on in the season. Was a guy that I was fading in drafts this year because he kind of profiles as an accumulator, and I was worried where the plate appearances were going to come from in a crowded situation in Baltimore. So far, he's the guy right now playing every day. and he's played really well. Are you a buyer and believer in Jordan Westberg?
Yeah, so he was a guy who I wanted in every draft. I think he was a guy who got massively overlooked in draft season because this was a guy who was a legit prospect, and then like he kind of came up last year and was decent, like he was solid. He just didn't like explode or anything, and I think people just kind of forgot about him because there's so many guys in Baltimore, and I think maybe people thought like maybe he might not play enough or blah blah blah, but I mean he is crushing right now, and some of this might not stick. Like he's got a 373 BABIP, but obviously that's going to come down. He's not a 333 hitter. He's probably, I would say closer to like a 260 guy, maybe 270 if he keeps hitting the ball as hard as he is. I mean, he's got a 61.5% hard hit rate. That is insane. He's got legitimate power. He's pulling the ball 40%. It's okay. The big thing is his contact rate is only at 65%, but his zone contact is 82%. I don't think he's going anywhere. I'll be honest with you. I like him a lot, and I'm trying to trade for him in the leagues that I don't have him in Yahoo.
All right. So I think, and I got asked about him in my chat earlier today too. And I don't think my opinion of Westberg has changed all that much. I think that Westberg, for the most part, is an accumulator. He's a guy that he does not have a standout tool in fantasy, and therefore he needs full-time playing time to continue to like accumulate stats. Now, what I will say is he has made improvements in the hard hit rate, right? He is striking the ball with more authority this year, and this is something I need to do a further. So Steven in the chat is all stop it, Justin. This is definitely something I need to investigate further and like kind of see like, is there something in the swing that's changed from last season? Because like he's never been a guy who's shown massive amount of power. And so is this just a kind of blip and he's just on a hot streak? Because like I said, the zone contact is below league average. Like there's nothing impressive about that. I think he is probably like a 255, 260 kind of hitter. And so he needs that full-time playing time and he needs that power to kind of stick around for him to have kind of this, quote unquote breakout. I don't know that I'm a buyer yet. I'm going to do some more research. I'm going to look into it some more. I'm going to watch some video and kind of compare notes to last season, but I'm not quite the believer that you are.
Well, like, okay, so in 2022, AA to AAA, he had 27 homers. Like, what are we saying that he doesn't have any power? Like, are you saying he doesn't have like 35, 40 homer power? Like, okay, but like 25 homers in the majors seems pretty doable with his profile. From everything I see, he's got a 20% K rate. He's never struck out a ton. Like his highest K rate was 27% for half of 2022, but he's been more closer to like 21%. Like, isn't that what we're looking for? Guys who can hit for power, who don't strike out. I mean, the contact rate,
I think he's a solid guy, but like I don't think he's like a 30 home run hitter.
No,
I think he's like a teen, like high teens, maybe low 20s if he keeps up kind of what he's doing. I mean, with a halfway decent batting average. Like
I think he can hit 25 with a solid batting average. And like keep in mind too, 260 is well above the MLB average for batting average, even though it sounds like it's nothing special. He also has 3 steals. He stole 10 bases last year between AAA and the majors, and he's already at 3. So clearly he's running. Hasn't been caught stealing yet, and he's in a good offense. Like it's a really,
and if he keeps this role, like I don't have any concerns with him not returning value, right?
All right. Well, I'm telling people out there, ignore Justin, go out, get Westberg if he's available in your league. I'm talking 10, 12 teamers. I have him in a 10 teamer. I'm telling you my personal recommendation, go get him.
All right. I think the problem becomes Baltimore is about to get more and more crowded, right?
It doesn't matter. They're not taking playing time away from him. He's their best hitter right now. Or Cowser, one of the two. The guy we're talking about now.
Cowser.
I'm telling
Steven's with you in the chat. We'll revisit this one in a couple months. We'll see. But
I don't want you to talk anybody out of getting a really good player here, so I gotta take my stand.
I think he's a decent player. I just don't think
he's a good player.
All right, we'll see. Speaking of a really good player, Colton Cowser is a really good player. This was one of my big draft targets. I didn't get a chance to unfortunately write my this year's Cedric Mullins piece, but it would have featured Colton Cowser as one of the guys. He's looked every bit of the prospect pedigree that he had kind of coming up. Are you a believer in Colton Cowser like I am?
Okay, so yes, I like Cowser. Explain to me how he's a guy who you're excited about, but Westberg isn't. Like, what has he done that Westberg didn't do? Because he had 15 homers in 2022, 17 last year, less plate appearances, but not a ton less, where it's like, okay, I mean, higher K rate, lower contact rate. So, like, what do you love about Cowser that you don't like about Westberg?
One, I think is a better path to playing time because Cowser's an elite defender.
I don't think either of them are sitting, man. I don't think Westberg's sitting.
He's not sitting right now, but he might when Kobe Mayo comes up.
I think Jackson Holliday. I think the only way Kobe Mayo comes up is if Jackson Holliday gets sent down.
All right, then Westberg can play second. You might be right.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
But I think what Cowser has that Westberg doesn't is a real carrying tool in fantasy. I think the power is a carrying tool. I think the defense is a carrying tool for him. Now, there are stronger parts of Westberg's game than Cowser's, right? Like in terms of like the contact skills, I think Westberg's contact skills are better. And so I think that the floor on a Jordan Westberg is higher than a Colton Cowser. Like if you told me that one of these guys was going to get sent to AAA at some point, it's Cowser. Because I could totally see Cowser striking out a 35% clip, not making enough contact to unlock that power. And all of a sudden he gets sent down, especially with guys like Heston Kjerstad on the roster, other guys in the minor leagues that could come up. Whereas I think Westberg, at worst, Westberg is a utility infielder. Like I don't think that's even like a high probability. So if you're looking, like I think, especially in your deeper leagues, in your 15-team leagues, I think Westberg is the much safer bet. But man, Cowser's upside, man. What he's shown so far, he looks so damn good, man.
I mean, they literally have the same stats. They both have like 5 homers, 3 steals, hitting really well. I mean, slight like 373 compared to 333, but okay. But like, and you have to realize that this is just a hot streak from Cowser. Like, I'm not saying he's not good. He is good, but realize that he's probably not going to hit above like 250 for the year. So just realize like this is a time where you're starting him every game. I'm starting like in Yahoo, even like versus lefties, even versus good pitchers. I'm starting him every damn day.
Yeah,
Cowser is just unconscious right now, but this will come to an end. I mean, every year guys do this. Every year it comes to an end, and then people end up dropping guys. He's gonna have a cold spell. His profile is such that when you strike out 30% plus, you're gonna go through like longer cold streaks than other guys do. So just be prepared mentally to handle that. I think you should keep him. I still very much like Colton Cowser, but him compared to Westberg on the year, I don't know that I would take Cowser over Westberg. I agree with you. I think that the floor is higher with Westberg, and I'm not sure how much higher the ceiling is for Cowser. So they're both former first-round picks, by the way. Now, granted, Cowser was like the 5th overall pick, and Westberg was like the 30th, but the pedigree is there for both. These are both legit guys, and I'd be interested in both. I grabbed Cowser in a bunch of leagues too.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Blake Perkins, who was a guy I'd never fucking heard of before the start of the season.
He was up last year, Justin. He had like 170 plate appearances last year.
And I couldn't care less about him back then. I don't really care that much about him now, even though he is hitting 333, 414, 510, 2 home runs, and 2 stolen bases in just 58 plate appearances. Right now, Christian Yelich is out with a back issue, so Perkins is going to play quite a bit. Are you in on Blake Perkins?
I think he's fine as like a short-term fill-in, but he's not a guy that I'm relying on because he's clearly on a hot streak right now. I think he's fine to play him for like a couple weeks. But Yelich could be back as soon as tomorrow, I think, or he could be out longer. I don't know, but there's nothing really here to tell me that he's someone I'm super interested in. He's hitting 57% ground balls. Launch angle's 5 degrees, barrel rate is 2.8%. He's hitting the ball hard, kind of, but max EV is very low. His hard percentage is low. He's not pulling the ball. His zone contact is only 78%. There's nothing really like super interesting here.
You know what the easiest way to hit balls hard is?
Is this a sexual joke or?
It's not. It's
okay.
It's a mechanics thing.
Oh, tell.
It's easier to hit hard balls when they're on the ground.
Okay.
Ground balls go faster than fly balls do. And one of the reasons why his hard hit rate is the way it is, in spite of the fact that he's got like an 88 average exit velocity, mile per hour average exit velocity, is because those ground balls are the ones that are moving fast. Like, this is not like a breakout. I completely agree with your analysis. Like, zone contact is scary bad. I'm not in on Blake Perkins. I think this is going to end very, very abruptly, especially once Yelich comes back. I think, he's going to lose playing time. He's going to get exposed. So I'm not in on Blake Perkins. What about Jesse Winker? Jesse Winker has been a dude that some people in the industry have just stand over for years and years. I've never understood the love for Jesse Winker. Do you love Jesse Winker?
Well, I mean, I think initially I understood it because, he had 24 homers in 2021. He has a pretty good contact profile, but he couldn't stay healthy was the main thing. He's an interesting post hype guy. And he's going to get some run in Washington, but he's no longer in Cincinnati, so he doesn't have Great American Ballpark to call home, which was a significant advantage for him before. He doesn't strike out a lot, which is good. He's very patient. He's got a good plate approach. But he's always had a high amount of ground balls. Like, he's got a 25% fly ball rate. Now, when his line drive rate is 29%, he can keep hitting, over 300, but that's going to come down at some point. So it's like, what are you really left with in the end? Like, he doesn't have a lot of power. Maybe he can hit 270 or something like that. But he's, plays for Washington in a neutral park. I think it's probably most likely just going to be a short-term hot streak kind of guy. And in 15s and stuff, I picked him up in one of my mains. I think it's fine. It's a couple dollars, $6 pickup, something like that. I think that's fine. Use him while he's hot. Just don't hold on too tightly.
Yeah, so Jesse Winker is an injury-prone player with not a ton of power that cannot hit left-handed pitching at all. He is killing right now, and he's still hitting 174 versus left-handed pitching. He has a 500 BABIP versus right-handed pitching, which is clearly bringing things up for him. What
are you talking about? That's very sustainable.
Yeah, super sustainable. I've never been a Jesse Winker guy. Now, that being said, if you want to stream him against a bunch of righties in a row, go for it. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be somewhat productive. He's going to hit up high in their lineup because that lineup is atrocious. But it's got to be a really specialized situation where I'm going to use Jesse Winker. It's, for a series versus a bunch of righties in a row, because for some reason they're continuing to play him against lefties. A third of his plate appearances this year have been against lefties, and he's, like I said, I think he's hitting 174.
Do they have any better options?
I mean, you're a better option. You'd at least lean into a pitch, right? It's going up against the lefty. They've got Jacob Young, but the problem is they also have Eddie Rosario needs to platoon. They've got Luis Garcia who should platoon. So you only have so many platoon options, especially
I will say
is shallow.
It's interesting that he has 2 stolen bases already. He has never in his career stolen has he ever had 2 stolen bases any year of his career, and he's already got 2.
Oh, well, I mean, that's because teams have tried to protect him because his health is so bad in the Nationals. Like, we don't care what you fucking do.
Nationals like, fuck it, do your thing.
Listen, you're just a placeholder for James Wood and Dylan Cruz. Do
But
what you want.
What's also interesting is his speed score this year is 4.8, which is like double what it's ever been in his career. He's 30 years old. Like, what is going on? Like, he talked about how he's finally healthy. Now, granted, he's been in the league for like, this is his 8th season. So it's like, okay, is he really actually healthy for the first time? Or, you'd think in 8 years he would have been somewhat healthy at some point in there. But I don't know. I think I don't think he's worthless. I just think he's someone who you have to be ready to move on from at some point.
No, I agree. All right. Next guy on the list is Michael Bush, who started at absolute gangbusters, was a big target for me in a lot of leagues, and I didn't get him in some of my big money leagues, which I've regretted. Are you in on Michael Bush?
Yeah, I felt a little bad about not being more in on him. I was, kind of like, he's a 26-year-old who had been in, the minors for a while. He came up briefly last year and didn't have much success. It was 81 plate appearances. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, I mean, he's striking out 28% of the time, but if you have that kind of power, that's fine. I think the power is fairly legitimate. His contact rate is 77%, zone contact 89%, hard hit rate is 47%, which is pretty good. Barreling the crap out of the ball, but obviously that's something that could just be like a hot streak type thing. But he's hitting the ball in the air a lot. His ground ball rate is 24%. That's insane. I definitely don't think that that's sustainable. Like, I think he's going to be hitting probably some more balls on the ground here. But if he can keep hitting the ball in the air with authority, I mean, it's hitting 309 with a 301 XBA. Again, that'll come down. But I think he's someone that definitely he's interesting if you're looking for a power bat.
Yeah, I mean, I love Michael Bush. For those who don't know his story, he was a Dodgers prospect, kind of was blocked, but mostly because of his defense. Like, he's so bad defensively that like they were never going to give him a shot at the major leagues, and especially once they brought Freddie Freeman to town, it was like, well, now you're really screwed. Like, you're never getting into the lineup with sitting behind Freddie Freeman. But Bush has always been able to hit. Like, he's hit at pretty much every stop along the way, and so he just needed to change the location. He's got in Chicago now. I won't repeat all the stats that you mentioned, but like, he's making really, really good contact in the zone. He's got a ton of power. The Cubs seem happy to just let him play first. Because they've got their own other defensive issues with Christopher Morel, who they have to DH for the most part. So, like, I think that Bush is gonna just be a dude. Honestly, I'm in a dynasty league where I really need pitching, and someone offered me Jesus Luzardo straight up for Michael Bush, and I turned it down. I mean, I just think that Michael Bush
we talked about that. I don't remember if it was on or off the air, but we talked about that.
Yeah, and I mean, I was really close to taking it because I'm not a big Luzardo guy, but I really do need the starting pitching. And I couldn't pull the trigger.
I said to take Luzardo, so that's I mean, I get it though.
Yeah, I love Bush so much, so I'm a big believer in Michael Bush. What about Ahmed Rosario, who has been playing really, really well? Settled for a $1.5 million contract, which is like peanuts for a veteran like him. But I mean, this is a guy that's pretty much hit every year that he has been in Major League Baseball. The problems have been defensively for him. He's just so bad defensively that he lost playing time towards the end of his stay in Cleveland. Where are you at on your former Guardian, Ahmed Rosario?
Yeah, I was very, very in on Rosario in draft season. I drafted him in every single Fantrax league. I drafted him in one of my main events. And he was a guy who I was keeping an eye on constantly in the leagues like that I didn't have him in to see if someone would drop him. He went to Driveline, and I was like, okay, if they can do with him what they did with JP Crawford, this could be a game changer for him. And, you look at the results early on, and you see him swinging more. He's making even more contact, more zone contact. His zone swing rate is 10% higher than any time in his career, pretty much. 10% higher than last year. He's swinging outside the zone less. He's just making really good swing decisions right now. and he's got a 52% hard hit rate. He's barreling the ball more. I mean, he went to driveline to add more power. I mean, because this is a guy who, he's always been really efficient on the bases. He was 13 for 13 in 2021, 18 for 22 in 2022, and 15 for 17 in 2023 on the bases. Like, if a team tells him to run more, this is a guy who I've always had as a guy who could break out big time, and think we could finally be seeing it. And I'm all over him. So he's a guy who doesn't strike out. He should hit for a high average. I think he's a guy who can hit legitimately 300, at least 280. We've seen him at 280 to 290 many times. So I think that's kind of at least what you're going to get, and hoping for more.
Yeah, I mean, he is a guy who just knows how to make contact, and I love. I mean, one of the whole reasons I was big on Nico Horner coming into the year, right, is like I love these guys who put the ball in play. And will there be struggles with Med Rosario? Yeah, he's walking less than 2% of the time. Like, I think there are going to be struggles at points, but I also think he's just a really good natural hitter. And as long as the Rays allow him to continue to play, I think he's going to play. The question becomes, will the defense become a liability for him at some point? Because he's still not a good defender. Driveline didn't fix that. I don't know if they can fix that. But I think for right now, like, you're talking about a guy who's triple eligible, second, short, and outfield, which I love having those guys who can move infield to outfield on your team. Like, he's doing everything you want him to do. Like, I'm a big buyer right now on Med Rosario.
He started 9 games in a row. So, on the Rays, that's saying something. That means that they know that he's someone that they can't take out of their lineup right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right. What about Yariel Abreu? This guy has been really, really hot as of late. Was a guy that some people were really, really into early on in draft season, and then kind of lost favor to Ceddanne Rafaela, who looked like he was going to get the spot over Abreu. Abreu still makes the team and is now playing more because the Red Sox are so beat up. Are you a buyer on Yariel Abreu?
I would say I'm a buyer to some extent. He doesn't look like the kind of guy who can steal a lot, but I mean, he's kind of a bigger body dude. But in 2022, he had 31 steals. Last year, he had 11 in like 450 plate appearances. He's already got 4 this year. So, like, he's running often. And outside of that, like, the main thing is that I don't know how realistic he's going to keep hitting. Like, he's hitting 280 with a 196 XBA.
Yeah.
He's got a 29% K rate. It's just 406 BABIP. You have to realize that, like, this isn't going to keep up. He's on a hot streak, but I don't know what the bottom of that hot streak looks like. Like, I honestly don't know. I don't know if he's going to keep playing or not. I don't know if they're just going to play him now, and then once Grissom comes up, they might end up moving Rafaela back to the outfield and sitting Abreu or sending him down if he has a slump. Like, I'm not sure what they're going to do. So I'm just saying, don't overinvest in him, but I'm interested because he's got some power and he's got some speed.
Yeah, I'm not very interested in Abreu. Like, I saw him go for $350 in a main event league last weekend, and like, I was like, oh, that person just lit $350 on fire. Reminds me of like when people were spending like $400 on Josh Lowe the year before the breakout. And the skills aren't great. 80% zone contact. It's like almost 15% swing and strike rate. There is a little bit of power in the bat, but it's not like prodigious power. It's not prodigious speed. Like, this is an accumulator. And right now he's going to accumulate because the Red Sox are so beat up. But like, none of the injuries that the Red Sox have are like serious injuries where guys are going to miss an extreme amount of time, other than maybe Tristan Casas, who's going to miss probably like 6 weeks or something. But I don't think he's playing first at any point. So like, where does the playing time come from when Tyler O'Neill gets healthy, when Vaughn Grisham's back? Like, where is he going to play if he starts to struggle? I think he could go down to the minor leagues pretty easily once this kind of hot streak wears off.
Yeah, I think that is the concern for sure. I think you definitely ride him while he's hot and hope that, I mean, he's got an interesting power speed combo thing going, but it's so it's so tenuous with that hitting profile, with that contact profile. So you're just hoping to get what you can get, and just again, don't hold on too tightly. If you have to move on, you have to move on.
Mark D in the comments says it, but I'm also intrigued to see how high Dahlbeck's K rate can get. That's always a wonder. All right, let's move on to Miguel Sano, who we mentioned earlier. I think this is, like I said earlier, like this is just something that I'm willing to ride and kind of see how long it goes for, because the underlying skills are actually halfway decent right now, which is not something we could really say at any point in Miguel Sano's career before this point. But I also am not ready to buy in that like this is a massive change.
No, and what's really interesting about him right now is he has a 24% fly ball rate. Like he's never been below 40% in his career. And I mean, I know it's a small sample, but 24%, like Jesus. So if he wants to start hitting home runs, he's going to have to get the ball in the air a lot more often than he is, but he's hitting it hard. But as you pointed out before, when you're hitting the ball on the ground a lot, it's easier to do that. He's got a 30% line drive rate though. That's why his average is as high as it is. So that's not going to hold up. I mean, this is a guy who he's probably going to hit. You're hoping he hits like 230, 240. That's like the upside. The downside is like 200 to 210. So just be aware of what he is. You know, you're playing him while he's hot and hoping that, you know, if he can keep hitting the ball really hard, hopefully he can hit the ball really hard in the air. He's going to have a lot of playing time now with Rendon out. He could be first base, third base eligible in like a week and a half to 2 weeks. So there's some things to like there. Just he's another guy who I'm not, relying on, but I think he can be useful.
Yeah, I mean, he's a career 326 BABIP guy. So like because he hits the ball so hard, he can like run a higher BABIP than you might expect a guy as slow as him.
Probably not 438 though.
Yeah, but 438 is insane. Like it's like, like that's going to come down to earth. This is some small sample bullshit. And I think it will fall apart at some point. But like I said, especially in your shallower leagues where you can just pick them, and even 15s where you might still be available, like I don't have a problem picking him up and kind of riding and see where it goes, because he does have a lot of power. And the Angels kind of suck outside of, a few guys on that team. So he might hit in a pretty decent spot in the lineup for a little while. Luis Garcia, my boy. You know what? Of course, he starts to break out the year I don't draft him. I drafted him everywhere last year. I drafted him every year before. Been a big fan of his. And for some reason, in his age like 24 season, I decided I'm over you, Luis Garcia. And he's like, I'm going to give you something to remember me by. Are you buying in on Luis Garcia's breakout?
I didn't know that this was your boy.
Been one of my boys for a while.
Okay. All right. I mean, he was my boy earlier in his career too. So I think we were both, really intrigued. He came up when he was 20 years old. Those guys, the guys who come up 2021 often end up being really, really good, because to advance through the minors that quickly means you've got some skills there. But he just never really looked like he had any kind of defining skill. But he's like a guy who has a really good contact profile. Doesn't strike out a lot. 91% zone contact rate, 80% contact rate this year so far. The thing is, he's hitting the ball really hard right now. The barrel rate and the hard hit rate are high, 46% hard hit rate, 13.5% barrel rate. The launch angle is still low though. Like he doesn't hit a lot of fly balls. He's never hit a lot of fly balls. Like he's like high 20, mid to high 20s fly ball rate kind of guy. You're hoping he can get to 30%. So like, the home runs are going to be capped. He's not going to hit a ton of homers, but he's on Washington. And if Jesse Winker has 2 steals, this dude's got 5 already. So, if you can get a ton of steals from this guy, and maybe like, hopefully he can get you like 15 homers with a good average. I mean, this guy can hit 280, probably even 300, honestly. Like that's within the realm of possibility for him. So depends on what you're looking for. This isn't going to be like a world beater kind of guy, but this is a guy who can maybe go 15, 20, 25 with a 300 average would be really, really good.
Yeah, this is super frustrating for me, because the reason I kind of jumped off the bandwagon had nothing to do with Luis Garcia and everything to do with the Nationals. The Nationals seem to hate this guy. Like they set him down for no reason in like last year when he was actually one of their better performers. They gave him a bunch of shit in spring training. Like there were comments about, oh, he probably won't even make the team. He's fighting for a job. And it's like, this guy's one of your better hitters. What the hell are you doing? But he appears to have overcome all that. I am a buyer. I wish I had more shares of him. I don't, unfortunately, but I'm happy to see that my boy finally broke out. And I do buy. I mean, I don't think he's a 300 hitter. I think he's probably more like a 280 hitter, but a 280 hitter with 15 home runs and probably 15 to 20 stolen bases. Like there's value as an MI in your 15 team leagues in that. So, and I think in even some 12. So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a buyer of my boy, Luis Garcia. What about Davis Schneider? He's a guy that I was not a believer in coming in to spring training. I think the underlying skills were pretty atrocious. Starting off decently this year, are you a buyer in Davis Schneider?
I'm more intrigued than you are. I mean, he had 29 homers last year between AAA and the MLB. The problem was he was like a lefty masher. He was never really very good against righties. I drafted him in Glarf where I wanted to have take a shot in a backup second baseman type guy. But then it was like, playing time. They're playing Biggio still for some, who knows what reason. And I just wasn't sure if Schneider would ever get a shot. Of course, dropped him 2 weeks ago. Now looks like he's finally getting a shot. But yeah, I don't think that there's like a lot here. Like he doesn't hit the ball super hard. His contact profile is not very good. Only an 80% zone contact, 74.5% contact rate. Just he's kind of middling, but I think he's interesting if he's hot. But the thing is, as we'll talk about a little bit later, they have a guy named Relvis Martinez in the minors who should be coming up sooner than later. And I think pretty much he would make Davis Schneider be out of a job.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen eventually. I don't think Davis Schneider's very good at baseball. Now he has been better this year than he was last year. Last year, like I understand, like, he had like a really intriguing debut that some people really liked when he hit 8 home runs, the 276 batting average and a 404 on base percentage in 141 plate appearances. Problem was it was all built on a lie. Like he had a 73% zone contact last year. That was the reason why I was like, you can't have those kind of numbers and sustain even close to a league average batting average, much less a plus batting average like he had last season. Now there have been improvements in zone contact. He's around 80%. There is a little bit of pop in the bat, but just nothing stands out about David Schneider's profile. And I agree. I think Orvelis Martinez is going to come up and take that spot. He's crushing in AAA right now. Now that's Buffalo, and we've seen what Buffalo can do for your numbers. So you don't want to like go super crazy on Orvelis Martinez, especially because there's real defensive issues. Like I haven't honestly even looked to see like has Orvelis Martinez been playing second base, which I think is his permanent home once he is up, because he doesn't have the arm for third base. But if he is, I'm a buyer in Orvelis Martinez and not a buyer in David Schneider.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll talk a bit more about Orvelis Martinez in the later segments. We can talk about that then.
Let's talk about your boy Gabriel Arias. You a buyer there?
So he was a guy who I was never particularly high on. Last year was interesting because he hit the ball really hard. He had a max EV of 114.5 last year, but he didn't make enough contact. Like he had 64% contact rate, 71% zone or 75% zone contact rate. 210 average, struck out 33% of the time. That was in about 350 plate appearances, but like clearly the Guardians saw something in him. Like they really liked him. He was the centerpiece of I can't remember if it was the Clevenger trade or a different trade. I think it was the Clevenger trade. Yeah, because you got him from San Diego. This year, I think he's taken some steps forward. Like he looks more comfortable. Contact rate will never probably be great, but zone contact rate is up to 87% this year, which is solid. 70.5% contact rate. He's not hitting the ball as hard right now, though. It seems like he's focusing more on making contact this year. But he's getting the ball in the air more. Like his launch angle was very low last year. This year it's at a really good. He went from 3.7 to 14.4. but he's got a 406 BABIP. He's not, he's hitting 300 right now. That's not a thing. He's going to hit probably 240, something like that. But he does have legitimate power, and he runs a little bit too. If he can pair those together and with multi-position flexibility, like I think he's like first shortstop outfield or something like that. Like he's got a bunch of eligibility. Outfield. What was that?
He's shortstop outfield right now, but he will pick up eligibility everywhere at some point. He's played 7 games at third. He's played a couple games at first, couple games at second. So he's going to pick up eligibility everywhere. There's a little blurb that they do for prospects on the Fangraphs page, and it's the perfect, it's the epitome of what Gabriel Arias is. And what it says is, Arias is every tool except for hit. That is the issue. And what he's doing this year is insane. He has a 63% swing percentage. If he was a qualified hitter, he would have the highest swing percentage in all of baseball. He see ball, he swing at ball. And right now it's working. I don't think it's going to work for very long. He's got a really high swing strike rate. It's not his zone contact is actually pretty decent right now, but his O swing is almost 50%. He's swinging outside the zone almost 50% of the time. These numbers are going to crater at some point. Now, he's a good enough defender everywhere that I think he could just continue to be kind of this utility guy for the Guardians. And because he's got the other tools that can kind of carry him through with that, I think there is some interest in deeper leagues, especially as it continues to pick up these eligibilities, right? What did we talk about for the first half hour of the show? All the fucking injuries, right? And so, in a 15-team league, a guy like Gabriel Arias has some value because he can play so many different positions for you and not be a zero necessarily in any particular category, except for maybe batting average at some point. But right now, he's not. So, I think at least as a short-term kind of flexibility option, I like Gabriel Arias.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm open to the possibility that he has more in his tank, but I'm definitely not counting on that.
Yeah. Another one of my boys that I didn't get in a lot of spots this year, I've gotten a couple, but I just didn't end up with him in a number of leagues, is Mr. Ranger Suarez, who continues to just dominate through 7 scoreless innings again tonight. After throwing 9 scoreless in his previous start. His ERA is currently down to 1.36. Is Ranger Suarez the best pitcher in the world?
I mean, seriously, what the hell did I miss with this guy? Why is he your boy? His velo is down a mile per hour pretty much across the board, and he's getting hit less than he ever has been. What is happening here? I don't even know. He's not walking as many guys. His walk rate has been halved, and he's striking out more guys. And I'm like, what is happening? I really don't know. He's not a guy that I own anywhere, nor could I pick him up anywhere. So I haven't really looked into it. Okay, now I see what happened. Okay, so after facing Atlanta, his first outing where he was okay. He gave 3 runs, but he had 7 Ks in 5 innings. That's not bad. Then he faced Washington, Pittsburgh, and Colorado. So I think I see how he
was in Cincinnati tonight and threw 7 scoreless.
Cincinnati struggles versus lefties. They're good versus righties. They also didn't have Fraley or Benson in their lineup. Granted, they're both usually both not in there
against lefties. Yeah,
right. But they don't really have that many guys who can hit lefties right now. And India is one of them, and he's sick, I think. So
yeah, he's got the flu.
What lineup really did they even put out there against them?
I mean, honestly, watch the start today. But so. On Sunday, Jason Collette talked about on our podcast, talked about kind of the run environment right now, and that there isn't a lot of home runs. Home runs are down this year.
A lot of people are talking about a dead ball.
And so I was kind of just flipping through TikTok or something, and a clip from the Foul Territory, the AJ Przinsky show, came on, and I can't remember who the guest was, but it was a major league pitcher, and and he was talking about how the balls are actually smaller right now than they have been in the past. And so for certain guys, that's going to be a really good thing, and other guys not going to be a good thing. But some guys are just being able to throw things a little bit easier because it's a little bit smaller ball. And
they changed the size of the baseball.
Technically not, but I mean, I guess I honestly don't know. But I wonder if Ranger Suarez is one of these guys who just has a better feel for the ball right now than maybe other guys because of the way it feels in his hands. So now I will say too that Ranger Suarez is a guy that is kind of doing something that I've seen become a little bit more common this season with some of the more successful pitchers, and that's he's attacking the zone more. He's going, hey, listen, I think I've got good enough stuff to at least either get strikes or get people to deliver weak contact on. And so why am I nibbling around the zone? I'm just going to attack it. Attack the zone. I'm going to let you put it in play. I'm going to let my defense bail me out. The defense is a little bit improved this year, now that Schwarber's not playing the field, and it's working. Will it work for very long? I don't know that it will, because as things heat up in Philadelphia, you got to remember, like, Philadelphia has had some pretty ugly weather to start the year, and the East has had some pretty ugly weather to start the year. I think as things warm up, the ball's going to start leaving the yard. You're going to have some real problems with Ranger Suarez, but I'm enjoying it while it's lasting right now.
I mean, that might explain like a lower walk rate, but that doesn't explain why he's getting more strikeouts and more swing and miss like that. If he's throwing,
if you got a better feel for the ball, you're able to place it in the zone better.
Well, no, I'm saying if you're throwing it in the zone more, that's not going to lead to more strikeouts. Generally, it would lead to less strikeouts and less strikes.
When your swing strike rate's up, it's going to help.
Well, yeah, his swing strike rate is up, but I don't know why that is. But I mean, he's got a 230 BABIP and an 88% left on base percentage. Like,
both are going to come down.
Clearly, he's I think he's closer to a 4 ERA kind of guy. But we'll see if the smaller baseball is a thing. I don't know. This is beyond my expertise, and honestly, it's really frustrating watching this clown go out and do well every week because I have 0 of him, and he was not a guy I had any interest in whatsoever this year.
I wish I had more. I've been a big Suarez guy in the past. Like, you're at your whip, but you got to pair him with a guy that.
Yeah. Mark D's comment. Yeah, I didn't do my research on tiny hands pitchers before the season. Yeah,
there's something
every
year. Every year there is something that is stupid that Major League Baseball does, whether it's changing the size of the freaking bases or, changing the pitch out rules and fucking letting guys not use fucking spider attack or using spider. Like, every year there's something. We just don't know what it's going to be until we're in season.
I never know. Even when we're in season, I still don't know what the hell's going on.
Mark's killing it in the chat tonight. So,
he is.
Appreciate you sticking around in the middle of the night with us. Next guy is Mitchell Parker. Here's another guy who I had no idea who the fuck he was until about a minute ago. He just goes out and throws 7 scoreless against the Astros for some godforsaken reason. Was one of the most picked up guys in the main event this week. Are you a buyer in Mitchell Parker at all?
I don't fucking know. Like, this is the first guy on this list who I legitimately have never heard of in my life. I mean, so Nick Pollock ranked him as his 59th overall pitcher based on those 2 starts. Okay. I don't know. I disagree with Nick's ranking is a good amount. He's like the best in the game at like breaking down pitchers. His SP roundup is a must. He does phenomenal work, but his rankings for whatever reason are not always great. I don't know. But this is a guy who's struggled with his control a lot through the minors, but he's had really good K rates. So I don't know. I'm like looking at it, what like his arsenal. He throws 92. Like, he throws a fastball 51% of the time. It's 92 miles an hour. He throws it, and then with a curve and he throws a splitter. That's good. Splitter's good for getting swing strikes, and maybe his curve is too. I don't know. But when you throw 92, unless you're Aaron Nola, it's very difficult to live at that velocity and be really good.
So I'm going to disagree with you in this regard.
Okay.
First, he's left-handed. So 92 coming from the left-hand side is better than 92 coming from the right-hand side, right? It's harder it's harder for hitters to pick up. Two, have you watched him pitch at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So you need to go watch him pitch because he has a deceptive delivery that I think throws the timing off of hitters. So I think that there is something here. That being said, I don't think he's a top 60 starting pitcher, especially on the Nationals, because the Nationals are just not going to give you an opportunity to win. And like you mentioned, he has struggled with command and control his entire career. And I don't think 4 starts, changes that at all, or 3 starts changes that at all. So I'm not necessarily a buyer on Mitchell Parker. Like if he's free on your waiver wire, I mean, I guess you can go pick him up and kind of roll with it for a little while. But the Astros have just really, really fucking struggled right now. Like I'm not giving him any credit for like picking apart an Astros team that just can't seem to hit the fucking ball right now. Yes, he has some strikeout stuff, but will he be able to command and control it regularly? I don't quite believe, because when you have kind of an unorthodox delivery, it's hard to fucking repeat over and over again. And so I'm not yet a believer in that he can do that on a regular basis. And then when you add in the fact that if he can't and he becomes a whip killer, yeah, maybe he gets you strikeouts, but he's not going to get you wins. All of a sudden, he's maybe helping you in 1 or 2 categories. I don't want that on my team. Yeah,
I mean, it's a big question mark for right now. I think it's okay if you picked him up, especially in deeper leagues, just to see what you've got. But I'm definitely not making any kind of proclamations about him right now. And granted, like you said, I haven't seen him pitch. Maybe this is something that, we've seen some guys who have some weird things like, Nestor Cortez mixing with guys' timings. Maybe
Freddie Peralta's got a deceptive delivery.
Yeah,
but, we've also seen Freddie Peralta struggle at times to repeat it.
Peralta, though, has really good stuff. I haven't seen this guy, but from what I've read about him and what I've seen in the numbers, it doesn't look like he's got anything close to like what Freddie Peralta has. I was thinking Nestor Cortez was kind of a better comp because he throws.
I think Nestor Cortez has better stuff than this guy.
Maybe, I don't know. I just know that he relies a lot on timing and deceptiveness for his effectiveness. Did you see that ridiculous pitch he had against the Guardians where he like waved people off like in the middle of his motion and stuff? It was the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, how is this legal? It was ridiculous.
As long as you keep that foot in the air.
Good Lord.
Jake Irvin, another Nationals pitcher, has pitched well as of late. Goes up against the Dodgers in the next start. Somebody spent like $250 on him in the main event.
Woo!
I think it was. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I have zero interest in Jake Irvin. How about you?
Yeah, it's hard to see this lasting. I mean, he's throwing the ball with a little bit more velocity, but like the K rate has stayed the same. He's not getting swing strikes. His secondaries aren't particularly good. His walk rate is cut in half so far, but I imagine that's probably just regression will probably bring that back to, closer to 4 walks per 9. Ultimately, yeah, I would only be interested as like a $1 or $2 pickup in like a 15-team league where he has like a really easy start coming up, and just to see how he does if I have nothing else. But not much interest.
I guess that's a little hyperbolic. Somebody spent $121 on him.
That's still a lot of money.
Yeah, it's still way too much fucking money. Like it just Jake Irvin's not a good pitcher. Like let's stop this, please. Ryan Weathers. He struggled to start the year, but has looked a lot better since. He was kind of a big riser towards the end of spring training because guys like Nick Pollock were really in on some of the changes he made in spring. Are you a Ryan Weathers believer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say yes. He's not someone I'm like, 100% convinced is going to be great. But this is another guy who has the pedigree. He was the number 7 overall pick in 2018. And it just looked like he never panned out. But yeah, he upped his velo in spring training, and like he was getting a lot of strikeouts. And I mean, like his swing strike rate is at 12% right now, which is significantly higher than what it was last year. And like, he definitely looks like a different pitcher. He did not do super well today, but I know he played a really good team. I can't remember who.
It is Braves.
Braves. Yeah. I think he only had like
survived.
He survived, but he didn't strike anyone out. Like, he had like 1K.
He had one strikeout.
Yeah. So like, he's a guy who I'm definitely interested in, and I do own him in a few places, including a 12, I think, or maybe 2 12s. I can't remember. I did start him for the 2 start this week because I remember his second start was really easy. So I'm hoping it is the Nationals. Yeah. So,
and hey, that's what you want when you've got a really tough 2 start at the top of the week and an easy one at the back end of the week. You want guy just survive that front end so you can get the goodness on the back end. So
yeah, and he did survive, and you know, he's got a 2.70 ERA, but he's got a 1.35 WHIP. I would say my hopes are not super high that he's going to be really useful, but I think he's got enough there that make him interesting. I mean, he's throwing like 96 miles an hour. So anybody who throws 96 with some solid secondaries behind it, I'm interested.
Yeah, I think for him, a lot of it's just going to come down to control. Like he's got over 10% walk rate right now. He had a 10% walk rate last year. If you can keep the walks in check, then I think he can be a valuable pitcher. My fear is that he won't be able to do that. And then as things start to warm up around the country, obviously in Miami, it's a climate-controlled stadium, being a dome, but I do worry that the walks and then eventual homers will catch up to him. I'm more on the fence with Ryan Weathers. I don't think he's a guy that I think is a bust and will fall apart, but I'm also not necessarily buying in quite yet on him being like a guy who's taking another step this year.
Yeah, he had another 3 walks today in 5 2/3, so that won't help the walk rate either. But it is the Braves. The Braves are a tough team.
Brady Singer, another one of my boys. Guy who I should have put on the Alec Manoah do not touch list after what he did to my ratios last year, along with Michael Kopech, who is on that list. But I'm a sucker, and I'll try to kick that football over and over again. Looked really, really dominant in his first 2 starts. In his second 2 starts, he looked a little bit more pedestrian. Who is the real Brady Singer?
Yeah, that's the question. And it kind of looked like he had added a 4-seamer this year, and then it kind of disappeared lately. So I don't really know what to make.
It hasn't disappeared. I think if you're looking on Fangraphs, it's a classification issue.
No, I remember Nick was talking about that too.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure he was throwing it still like 20% of the time. It just wasn't being classified right.
Okay, but like he's the guys who only have 2 pitches, like Strider, like Jared Jones. You have to have 2 elite pitches, and you have to have a lot of velocity. And Brady Singer does not have those things, so he needs 3 pitches to survive, in my opinion. And I don't know that he still has that 3rd pitch. I mean, he's also got his left on base rate, by the way, is 100%. His BABIP is 182. So these are not just slight outliers; these are massive outliers. And he did get hit up today, so he's a guy who I think probably is coming to the end of his tether of usefulness. But he just needs that 3rd pitch, and I think he could be solid. I just don't know. I don't think he can consistently do that.
Yeah, he didn't really throw the 4-seamer tonight. He gave up 5 earned runs, so that's not a very good sign. And he only threw 2 changeups the entire outing. I'm definitely on the fence of this one. This was one where I've talked about him on a number of podcasts recently, and I was kind of like, the first 2 starts were, really, really, really good, especially because he was using that new fastball quite a bit. And the last 2 starts, you've seen the swing and strike rate disappear. You've seen that fastball disappear a little bit. So I'm starting to believe that that those first 2 starts were the aberration, and that again, Brady Singer is still Brady Singer, which makes me sad. Let's finish out this segment with Jose Soriano. Where are you at on this fireballer who sometimes struggles to find the zone?
Yeah, I mean that's really the big thing with him. He kind of reminds me of Luis Heel in that, he's got the velocity. I mean, he throws 99. Like, anybody who throws that hard, even though they're probably not long for the active duty in the MLB, kind of want to ride them until they fall apart. He's got great stuff, but like you said, he can't really command it. I mean, I think he has like 8 walks in his last 2 starts.
Yeah.
I think he's fine to use against like some of the more pedestrian to aggressive offenses who like teams that swing a lot at stuff. I think he faces Minnesota this week. I'm fine using him there. I just don't think that he's a guy. I would not use him against patient teams, elite offenses. Like, I think that those are the kind of places where he can have a big blow up. But he kind of went for pretty cheap. A lot of people were a lot more on Yariel Rodriguez than Soriano. Mm-hmm. I was more on Soriano. So, again, not using a lot of money. I think I got him for like $15 here and there. But I think he's intriguing.
He's very, very intriguing. The question is, like, how many guys is he going to walk? And I just don't trust that control at all. The command is okay. The control is really bad. And I think there are going to be these blow-up outings, especially when he does go up against these patient teams, these teams that will wait on you to come inside the zone, because when he comes inside the zone, he could get hit. So I think you're right. You stream him. I think he's a good team streamer in a 15-team league. We're not a guy you're dropping to the wire that you're gonna pick and choose your spots with.
Yep.
All right, let's go talk about some closer chaos. We mentioned the Tampa Bay situation with Pete Fairbanks going down. Jason Adam the guy, or do you think this turns into a committee situation?
Yeah, that's the thing is some of these teams, like, the Twins, for example, I was not surprised at all that they reverted back to a committee when Duran went down, because a lot of these teams, like, by nature want to have, or it's maybe the manager wants to have that committee situation. But sometimes a closer comes along and just for whatever reason, they finally give in and let them have the job. I don't know what Tampa Bay is going to do. I do think that Jason Adam would be the guy if they were to have a guy based on usage, but and I do think he's worth picking up, but I wouldn't drop a closer to add him is what I'm saying. Like, if you pick him up, it should be as like a tertiary guy who you're kind of waiting to see. Maybe he could be the guy. But I'm not going all in on that, because I think it could also just be a committee situation.
Yeah, before they put Fairbanks on the IL, they went to Colin Poche for, I think, their first save. And that, to me, is a sign that, like, I think they're going to play matchups. And Tampa Bay is notorious for playing matchups, right? So
they are. Yeah, well, Kevin Cash specifically, but yeah, they are.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily a believer that it's just going to be one guy. I think that Adam could get maybe like 2/3 of the saves. And that has value, right? Especially if he's your tertiary guy. But I agree. Like, I'm not going to drop a Joel Payamps. I'm not going to drop like a guy that I think is the quote unquote dude right now for Jason Adam. I will pick him up as kind of a backup, as a guy to rotate in my lineup. But if you're asking me, like, would I rather have Jason Adam or Kirby Yates right now? I'll take Kirby Yates.
Oh yeah, no question. I will say I haven't had a chance to look, but I do think that Adam might have pitched right before the game that Poche got the save. So It might have just been like, sometimes you can't just look at who gets the save. You have to look at like who was available that night and all that stuff too. So I'm just not sure. But yeah, it very well could be a committee. That's the thing. We just don't know right now.
Yeah. The next situation is Colorado, and you wrote, who cares? I think that's a fair assessment.
I literally have paid zero attention to who Colorado has used. They have nobody of remote interest to me, and I have no interest in rostering a bad pitcher in the place where pitchers blow up constantly. I no cares, no shares.
All right. I'm right there with you. Circling back on the Tampa Bay situation, Jason Adam had not pitched the day before and did not pitch in that game where Poche had gotten the save. So I do think that this is kind of a committee type of situation. But the more shall be revealed. Milwaukee, it looks like Joel Payamps is the guy. I mean, Abner Uribe was the guy given the ball first. He got the first 3 saves of the season, but he struggled mightily since then. Trevor McGill's off of the IL after being on there with a concussion, but it looks like Piamps is the dude, right?
It does, yeah. Kind of been tracking the usage there, and like they pretty intentionally. There's also a game before he got his first save where they were saving him for the 9th, but then they ended up scoring runs or whatever before that, so it turned into a non-save situation. They didn't end up bringing him in, so things like that led me to the belief that it's Piamps. And this is a guy who he doesn't strike out a ton. Last year he had a decent K rate, 9.8 K per 9. This year he's only at 7.3. But he doesn't walk guys, and that's what we like to see from a closer, especially. He's a guy, he had a 105 whip last year. If he can have a good whip, the ERA might be coming up a little bit because he might be giving up more motor contact than most closers. Like 8.1% swinging strike rate is not good, especially for a reliever. But he throws like 94, 95. He's just a solid pitcher, though. He's a guy who I think is just he seems like the kind of guy who can hold it down until Devin comes back. It's not 100% that they're not going to use McGill in there as well, but I would pick up Piamps and stash him if you need closers right now. He's probably gone though.
Yeah, I mean, if Piamps is available, he was one of my targets this weekend in Fab. Didn't get him anywhere.
He wasn't available in any of my leagues.
He was available in about half of mine, where people just cut bait once Uribe seemed like he was the dude.
Are some of those 12s?
No, I only have 112.
Oh,
so mostly 15s.
He wasn't available in mine at all.
But I also didn't go super big on him, largely because I think this is gonna be a job that changes hands over and over and over again. I think that Piamps could be the dude, but because he doesn't have overpowering stuff, if he runs into some problems, they could move to McGill. And they can move back to Uribe, and they can move back to Piamps. I think this is going to change hands a few times. And so, I didn't want to overinvest. One of the things I did was, I'm just going to hold on to Uribe for a little bit. I picked up Trevor McGill in a couple spots for $3 or $4 just to see, hey, if Piamps struggles on a back-to-back outing, do they just move on again? They didn't give Uribe a long leash. I don't know why they would give anybody else a long leash either. So.
Well, Uribe had his control was horrible. I think I just don't think that they could have stuck with him at that point.
I mean, they can stick with whoever they want to stick with. It's not some teams are going to stick with guys and some teams won't. And to me, if you're going to ditch a guy after the first week and a half of the season, you're probably willing to ditch other guys, pretty quickly as well. Yes, Uribe's had, some control problems, but I mean, it was really one outing where he's had 2 walks and then he's had a walk in a number of other outings. It's not over, he walked 2 or 3 in an outing or in a bunch of outings. So I'm not overly concerned about that. He's got the best stuff in the bullpen. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the job back at some point.
Okay.
Next situation, let's talk about Chicago Cubs. Man, this one hurts. I have a good amount of Adbert Alzolay.
Really?
And I regret it. I really thought he would be the guy. He's really struggled. It looks like he has given up the job. Question is to who or to how many other people? Do you have a read on this situation?
I mean, yeah, a little bit, I guess, but basically with Alzolay, one of my rules, and I don't know if you remember this, but kind of when I first came onto the Twitter scene a couple of years ago, when I went on the Bubba's show, one of the things that people saw was I had posted my my closer charts and how I chart things, and one of them is closer experience and stuff like that. So if a guy's been closing for 3 years, that's one thing. If a guy closed just last year, that was it, just 1 year. For me, that's a warning sign. If a guy, it doesn't mean that he can't do it, but it means that I don't necessarily know how committed they are to him. He only closed for a year, and he was going right up there with guys who have been closing for years. And for me, that's I don't invest in guys like that. So even though the skills looked good for Alzolay last year, he seemed kind of shaky at times, and I felt like it's not guaranteed that they're going to stick with him. And sure enough, like they moved on pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
I do think it's going to be Neris just because dude has 90 career saves. Again, this is not something that should matter. I'm not saying it does matter, but it matters to the managers, and that's why it should matter to you. Neris has a little bit of that closer label. Like he's a guy who closed multiple seasons, and then he got a bunch of saves in other parts of the year. So I definitely think that they're going to go to him first. He's not pitching well. He's got a 3.86 ERA by the skin of his teeth, like 5.44 Sierra, 186 WHIP. He's not getting any swing and miss. He probably doesn't have a long leash. Like I do think that they're going to go to him first, but that doesn't mean that he's going to keep the job. He's not a guy that I would invest much in at all. I would go much higher on Yates and Piamps than I would on Neris. They've also got Leiter there, who's pitching very well. He hasn't given up a run yet. He actually gets some strikeouts. His walk rate is fine. He's a guy who, should be in contention to get it, but he's not a closer stuff kind of guy. Like he only throws 91, and I think maybe that's part of the issue there is they don't feel like he's a closer type guy. But I think he might eventually get ops once Neris loses the job, which is what I think will happen.
Yeah, Neris has a 22% walk rate.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's insanely high. Unsustainably high, but insanely high.
His K- walk rate, by the way, 0.
Yeah, because he's not striking out as many guys as he normally would either. So, I think Neris gets the first crack at it because of the contract. Like they're paying him the most amount of money in that bullpen. And he has the quote, done it before kind of label, right? Like you mentioned.
Yep.
So in combination of those two things, I think Neris was the guy I picked up this week in leagues where I was looking for closers and I didn't want to spend a ton of money. I also didn't drop Alzolay. I'm not starting him because I think they may go back to him at some point. Yes, I know like the homers were obviously a problem, but the walk rate is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. And like, I'm not 100% sure he's not still the best relief pitcher on this team. So I don't think they're going to give it to Leiter. This don't seem like they want to give it to someone with underwhelming stuff. Alzolay still has really good stuff. He just needs to command it better. And I think he will end up getting the job back at some point. So I'm holding on to my Alzolay shares at least for a week or two and kind of see where we go from there.
In 15s, like if you're in a 12.
Yeah, in 15s. In 12s, I think you can.
Yeah, there's a lot more options out there. I wouldn't hold on too tight to Alzolay, but in 15s, I think that's the right move.
Mark D is still killing it in the chat. So, lost money stacking Dodgers on Irvin last time.
I was talking about Jake Irvin.
Yeah, Jake Irvin. Yeah.
Yeah. Down.
Yeah, go ahead and stack your Dodgers this time. I'm sure they'll get to them. All right. Let's move over to Minnesota. Still a committee, right? Like this is not and now Duran has started a rehab assignment. So like
I dropped checks 2 weeks ago. I'm like, nah, this is just a committee. I'm not messing with this situation.
Yeah. I dropped Brock Stewart, just straight committee. I said this was gonna happen. Those of you who spent a 15th round pick on Griffin Jackson, your main event, pull. So he's not gonna listen to this, so whatever. Feel free to tweet at him and tell him.
I'll send him a DM.
Yeah. Philadelphia. This is kind of a shared job, right, between Alvarado and Hoffman.
It looks that way. Like, here's the thing: like Alvarado keeps getting the saves, but they keep using Hoffman in situations that you would use your closer in, like tied games in the 9th or where you're up by the right amount, but then like you score more runs going into the 9th where then you use him. I don't know. I would say I would lean slightly towards Alvarado, but I think they're both sharing the job most for pretty much the foreseeable future. Hoffman, I mean, neither of them look great. Like they're both walking a lot of guys. I mean, Hoffman's slightly better, but it's kind of a messy situation. I expect both to get saves moving forward until maybe one of them takes it over at some point, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think what Philadelphia has shown over the last few years is that they're going to use a very similar to Seattle situation where they're going to use their best pitcher in their best spots. And sometimes that means the seventh inning, sometimes that means the eighth inning, and sometimes that means the ninth inning. And so, like, I think Alvarado probably gets 50+% of the saves, and Hoffman gets a little bit less than 50% of the saves. But I also think that, hey, if the 2, 3, 4 spot comes up in the seventh, one of those guys coming up in the seventh. Like, I think they're just gonna, they're gonna attack it the right way, which is what they should be doing from a baseball perspective, and is fucking infuriating from a fantasy perspective. So, Roy in the chat says Orion by the end of the year, baby. No, I don't think that's happening. I'm not an Orion Kirkwood believer. So, all right. David Bednar has been struggling. Closed out the game tonight, though. And the underlying numbers, hey, he's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with David Bednar. What about you?
I'm not going to go that far, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, the skills-wise. Like, swinging strikes are there. 12.9 K per nine, 2.5 walk per nine. Obviously, the 11.5 ERA is a mirage. He's got 2.5 Sierra, 350 BABIP, 28% left on base percentage. I think that's really where it is. I mean, it's a 7-inning sample. It's just small sample silliness. So, I think if you own Bednar, you're still holding him. I'm not necessarily dropping Chapman in deep leagues yet either, though. In 12s, you don't need to hold him, but in 15s, I think Chapman either could come into play if the shoulder ends up bothering Bednar or at some point, or if they trade Chapman closer to the deadline, he could become a closer at some point.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped his ERA by 1.5 by pitching a clean inning tonight. Like, I think he's just gotten really, really unlucky, and it's such a small sample because it's reliever innings like that. Like a few bad outings just ruins everything. So I have zero concerns with Bednar as long as he's healthy. So right now he looks healthy. He looked good tonight. I watched him close out their win tonight. So another Jared Jones victory. Speaking about guys I'm loving right now. So all right, let's move on to Josh Hader, who's been struggling. This one I have a little bit more concern about. I don't think he's going to lose a job anytime soon because they just paid him a crap ton of money, but he has not looked good this year.
What are your concerns?
He has not looked good this year.
Well, it's kind of the same situation as Bednar. Like, in what way? He's got a 243 Sierra. He's got 476 BABIP and a 48% left on base rate. Like, the swinging strikes are there. The K rate's there. I mean, the walk rate is high, but it's always high. Like, I think he's fine.
He has such trouble finding the zone, and then he's looked hittable inside the zone. I'm not 100% sure he's like completely healthy right now.
That matters less and less when you strike out. When you have 15 K per nine.
Yeah, and you get a 37% strikeout rate. Like, it definitely helps.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just like I'm annoyed because my two closers of my main event were Alzolay and fucking Josh Hader, but now I'm in fucking 7th or 8th place in my goddamn league.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Yeah, no, not ideal at all.
I think he's fine. I think he's fine.
All right. Maybe I'm just overreacting a little bit.
If there is anything wrong, I'm not seeing it in the numbers. I mean, I haven't watched him pitch. But I mean, he's getting hit hard.
I've watched him pitch. The fastball is what is getting hit right now, and
okay,
that is a bit concerning for me. Like I said, I don't think there's anything actionable to be done. Like, you're obviously not dropping him or trying to trade him or anything like that. But just something to monitor. And like I said, they just paid him a boatload of money. Like, they're not going away from him anytime soon.
I mean, they could use him in as a high leverage guy and use someone else as their closer, like Presley, if they want to do. But I don't think that'll happen.
No, I don't think it'll happen either. Arizona, will Paul Sewald regain the job once he's back, you think?
That's one thing I'm not sure on. Do you know what his contract is or what he's getting paid by them?
I believe it's the last year of his deal, but it's last year of Seawald's or Ginkel's deal too.
Okay.
I know this because someone yelled it out at Ginkel when he was closing out a game. Like loud enough where the mics picked it up. You're in the last year of your contract. Don't fuck it up, Ginkel.
Yeah, it looks like Ginkel's making 1.2 million. Sewell is making 7.4. I will say this: Sewell didn't look great when he came over to the Diamondbacks last year. Like he was fine, not great though. Like he looked elite in Seattle, and then when he got traded there last year, he just looked very, I don't know, not the same. And maybe I don't know. I'm not sure what was going on there, but I'm not completely convinced that they're going to go away from Ginkel. Granted, Ginkel hasn't been been perfect, but he's got 2.88 Sierra. He's not walking guys. I think what he has given up, I think he's kind of gotten a little bit unlucky. I think he's got really good stuff. I'm not positive that they go back to Sewell. It's possible that they share it. It's possible that Sewell becomes the high leverage guy, or maybe he does take the job back. But I'm not dropping Ginkel anytime soon.
I think they're going to go back to Sewell. Now, does that mean Sewell holds the job all year and Ginkel doesn't take it back over at some point? No, because Sewell has a long history of having injury issues and having home run problems, which is not something you want as a closer, Albert Alzolay, you dick. But you tell it's get late. I'm starting to lose it. But that being said, like Paul Sewell closed out games in the NLCS and won a game in the World Series. Like, I don't think they're going away from that. Like, I think they're going to give him his job back. Now, like I said, I think with how good Ginkel has been, and ultimately I do think Ginkel has been a damn good reliever for them. Like, I don't think the leash on Sewald will be super long, but I do think that once Sewald is back, like he'll be the dude, at least for the short term.
I don't know that they're just going to give it to him right away. I think they might make him earn it first.
They might make work his way back in and stuff like that. But like I think ultimately like it'll be Sewald's job to lose at some point. Will he lose it? I don't know. Like I said, like home run problems can be an issue, for a guy like Sewald, and I think Ginkel could reclaim that job. So if I had Ginkel, I would not drop him.
No.
Once Sewald comes back, I would kind of like give it a week or two to kind of see how things play itself out. Because I think Ginkel can be a very, very effective closer if he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely not dropping Ginkel. And I'm hoping that he keeps the job. I don't have any Sewald. I have several Ginkel shares. So I'm just saying, if you do have Ginkel, you should be planning as if he's not going to be the closer, because you shouldn't just assume he's going to keep the job. So make sure you pick up some extra closers along the way if you can. Yeah.
Let's finish out this segment with Boston. Kenley Jansen, his velocity's back up a little bit. Any worries on him? And if you are worried on him, who are you picking up?
I was worried before. I mean, his velocity was down not like a mile an hour is not a big deal this time of the year, but he was down like 2.5 to 3 miles an hour. That's significant, especially for a guy of his age and everything. Like he's had his struggles in the last couple of years at times. So I was pretty worried, but last outing, he was back up like 1.5 mile an hour, back to like only down like a mile an hour now, something like that. So, and I think he struck out. I think he struck out the side too, if I remember correctly. So I'm more encouraged by him than I was before. Like I was rostering Chris Martin where I could, because I think he's next in line there. I know a lot of people like Slayton, but I don't think Slayton's the guy right after Kenley. But right now I think Kenley's probably going to keep that job for now.
Yeah, I never really had any fear on Kenley not keeping that job. Mostly, as long as he was healthy. Mostly because I think Boston wants to trade him at some point, and if they take him out of the role, they lower his value. So I think they were going to let him work through it. And he's been an effective reliever, even with degrading skills. Like he's been effective closing pitcher pretty much the majority of his career. So that being said, I do think he gets traded at some point, and the hard part right now is Boston is really beat the fuck up, and so I don't have many wins. He's gonna have the opportunity to close out. But on the bright side, their rotation has been fucking phenomenal this year, and so like that'll give him some opportunities.
I wanted all of the Boston rotation because I'm like, with Kyle Boddy there, they're just going to be able to constantly be altering their pitch mix and all that stuff. Like having the guy from Driveline working for your team, like that's awesome. So I was all about pretty much every Boston pitcher there is. So I had a lot of shares of Pavetta, bunch of Houck, couple Whitlock, couple Bayo. So yeah, definitely big fan of the Boston rotation this year.
Yeah, I took a lot of just kind of like shares of different guys in every draft. Like I made sure to leave my every single draft with at least one Red Sox pitcher. So I've been very, very happy so far. I mean, like to see Pavetta get back and get Whitlock back, and from their injuries. A little more concerned on Pavetta's being an elbow issue, but but hopefully they can come back and continue doing what they're doing. Because man, freaking Cutter Crawford, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast. I think it was Paul. Crawford is one of those guys where, like, in season, I'm always like, oh, I love Cutter Crawford, and then when it comes to draft season, I always undervalue him. And I did that this year, and it's because he doesn't have like an overwhelming pitch. He just has a bunch of really good ones. And I feel like it gets lost, at least for me, in the projections. And so I wasn't as in on Cutter Crawford. I got him in my OC, which has been a really, really good team, in part because of Cutter Crawford. But I wish I'd gotten more Cutter Crawford this year.
I got as much as I could, which is not as much as I wanted, but
yeah, he was a riser, especially towards the end of draft season. So
he was, yeah.
All right, let's talk some prospects real quick, and then we'll wrap up with the Earth Leagues and get you off to bed, get me off to bed. So I still have to write an article.
Well, not bed. I got to do my Yahoo Fab after this. So
there you go. Well, I'll be doing an article. You'll be doing your Fab. Let's start with Junior Caminero. He is got 2 home runs, a stolen base, hitting .267 in 7 games since returning from, I believe, the concussion IL. I believe that's what he was on the IL for. I could be wrong, though. Do you think he is going to be up quickly? Because I have some doubts on that.
Well, I mean, so I don't have any thoughts on my own. Like, this is just all reading from what other people who I trust have said. And so this is kind of a list. Earlier today, Eric Cross put out a top 25 fantasy baseball prospects to stash, and he has like timelines with them. Now, granted, he had Heston Kjerstad on there coming up in June instead of April, which he's up. And maybe the timeline changed because Mountcastle got hurt, or, Hayes went on the IL, or whatever it is. But a lot of the prospect guys seem to think that Caminero is going to be one of the first 1 or 2 prospects who comes up here. So it's not just him. Other people thought so too. I want to say the Welsh, maybe Clegg and James Anderson too, but a lot of people think Caminero's up quickly. Now, what do you think?
And I want to correct myself. It was a quadriceps injury that he was on the IL for, not a concussion. I don't know that he's up as quickly as other people. One, he is not super strong defensively. And so like he's never going to play shortstop. Like, I don't think that is going to be his spot in the majors. And I just don't know that he's completely ready. I mean, this is a 20-year-old. I know he debuted last year in the majors. And so people are like, well, he's in the majors last year as a 19-year-old. Why can't he do it as a 20-year-old? Like, that's still a pretty tall task to ask from a 20-year-old guy. And it's not like he lit the world on fire when he came up in the majors, right? He only played 7 games. He had 235. I think the future is really bright for Caminero, but I think he's still super, super young, and the Rays don't tend to move quickly on these type of guys, right? Unless they have paid them a contract. So they have not done that with Caminero. So I'm a little bit more kind of tepid on the thought that Caminero is going to be up here before the end of May.
Well, I think the main thing is that With Brandon Lau on the IL, a lot of people thought that Caminero, if he wasn't hurt, was going to actually start up with the team. So, I mean, they're starting Curtis Mead at second base.
Mm-hmm.
Not very good. I think that's probably either he's going to be up now or they're going to wait for a while because, I mean, I think the playing time window is here with Lau on the IL. I mean, I think Lau sucks, but I don't think they're just going to not play him when he comes back. So I think that if he's going to play, it's going to be now. Most of the people who know more than I do say he's up soon. So all I'm saying is that seems to be the consensus.
Yeah, I don't agree. I mean, and I could be wrong. I don't know prospects as well as a lot of those guys. But while we talk about the next guy, I'll kind of see where he's been playing in the field. Because if he's been playing maybe like third base or second base a little bit more, especially second base, like I could definitely see that kind of path. But he's 20 years old, man. He's not even lighting the world on fire in AAA yet. Like, I just think this is a tall task.
So he's playing third base in the minors right now.
Which is probably where he should play.
Right.
So
I'm not saying he's going to come up and light the world on fire, by the way. Like, he came up for a cup of coffee last year as a 19-year-old. Like, that's showing you what kind of talent this kid has. But I mean, we've seen it from Jordan Walker. I mean, he's struggling massively this year as a 21-year-old. Like, it's really difficult to hit in the majors as basically a kid. I mean,
as anyone, it's hard to hit.
As anybody, but like
these guys, 20-year-old, yeah.
Some of these guys haven't even grown into their like full bodies yet. Like they're still developing a lot. So yeah, I'm not saying Caminero is going to be great. Like he's not the guy that I'm going in on this year as like, okay, this is the guy who comes up that I'm going to spend big on or something like that. Now the next guy, Joey Loperfido, is a guy who until recently everyone was talking about like, okay, he's going to be up any day now. He had hit 10 home runs. He was hitting like 330. Well, since then, his average has plummeted down to 260. He's still doing well overall. He's got 2 steals, but he's got a 34% K rate. Now, granted, that's only coming with an 11% swinging strike rate, so the K rate might be a little inflated, but I just don't know when he comes up if he's going to be able to. Guys who are striking out over 30% in the minors coming up to the majors, it's not a great sign.
No, it's not a good sign. I think he's playing some first base though, and now,
yeah, Abreu is a corpse, as we talked about.
Yeah, right now, Jose Abreu, he's worse than last time we talked about. I mean, like at this point, we talked about him on the Soup on the Bus earlier today, and I was like, I think you need to drop him in every format. Like, he just looked completely washed at this point.
He does. I agree.
So, I mean, they could let Loperfido come up and fucking strike out at a 35% clip. It'd still be better than what they're getting from Jose Abreu. Absolutely.
And he's a lot more like developed and ready to play at that level than like Caminero is. I mean, he went 24-24. He's not running as much this year so far, but I think he's just because he's homering every other game pretty much. But he's a guy who has some speed, and he could have multi-position eligibility there. They could play him in the outfield. They could play him at first base. They could play him at DH. So, I think Loperfido is definitely interesting.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who could make a debut here in the next few weeks. We talked about Werthos, Martinez. Anything you wanted to add on that? I do think he's going to be up as long as the defense is not too bad. The defense is the question mark, I think.
Yeah. From everything I'm hearing, the first guy to come up is either going to be, Caminero, Loperfido, or Relvis Martinez. Like those are the 3 names that seem like they're the soonest from the prospect guys. So yeah, I mean, everything looks good. He's not striking out. He's hitting for average. He's got some power. And he's playing second base, which is what the Blue Jays need. So, and the Blue Jays need someone to come up and start hitting because they are on the struggle bus still. Yeah.
I think this is a good gamble to take because they could easily slot him into second base, and just kind of let him play. So I think he should be up here in the next couple weeks for sure. Paul Skeens I think it all just comes down to pitch count. Like, at what point are the Pirates going to let him kind of go deeper into games so that way he can go deep enough to qualify for wins? But if there was a prospect that came up and absolutely turned into a superstar right away, I'd put my money on Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I mean, the dude, he reminds me a lot of Steven Strasburg. Like, he's that number one.
Don't say that.
No, I mean, but I think in all of the ways, unfortunately, I think he could be. Again, I don't want to burst the bubble of all you people, but guys who throw 100 miles an hour are not going to, their careers are not going to be long and fruitful, in my opinion. Like, they're going to have a lot of injuries and a lot of difficulty staying healthy. So just be prepared for that. But I'm still in for this year. Like, I didn't use a lot of draft capital on him. I got him late in some drafts and I held him. And I was like, well, let's see what he looks like. And he looks like he's just destroying worlds, like striking out everybody. He's got control on top of it. But he's only pitching 3 innings at a time. And on one hand, the Pirates want to save his bullets, right? Like, they don't want him to be throwing 6 innings, throwing 100 miles an hour in the majors. I think we could see a very similar thing to what they're doing with Jared Jones right now, who also throws very hard. They're going to limit his innings. He's probably not going to go deep into games, but if he can give you 5 beautiful innings, and then, take over from there with the bullpen, you'll take that all day from him. So, I mean, the ratios should be pristine while he's up and healthy.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's an absolute monster. Like I said, if there's anybody that's going to come up and be worth like a $400 bid for me, it's Paul Skeens. And I'm looking forward to the moment he does, because I only have him in a couple of DCs right now. So I'm a big believer in him. It just, like, I'm just watching those pitch counts. He's only the most he's thrown is the last 2 games. He's thrown 3 1/3. So once he hits like 4 1/3, 4 2/3, it's time to go.
Yep.
What about Kobe Mayo? He's a guy that has prodigious power, does strike out quite a bit, but he is crushing it in AAA, overshadowed by Heston Kjerstad, or Heston. Wow, why do I keep bungling his name? Heston Kjerstad. But Kobe Mayo, I mean, 7 home runs, 3 stolen bases, hitting .344. Like, there's a lot to this bat.
Yeah. I mean, he's got max EV is 115, hitting the ball hard, hits the ball in the air a lot, pulls the ball. He should be like a 30 homer type guy at some point. I don't know if he's going to come up and do that, but he has the power. But he's another guy who strikes out a lot. He's got like a 29% K rate, not as bad as Lo Perfido, but his 344 average, it comes with a 429 BABIP. So you're definitely not getting that high average guy, but it's really just coming. He also has 3 stolen bases, by the way. It really just with him is coming down to where will he play. I think the only way Kobe Mayo comes up, like I said earlier, is if Jackson Holliday goes down, which it looks like he might. Jackson Holliday does not look like he's ready for the majors right now. And so if they do bring him up, they're going to probably play. They're going to move Westberg over. Yeah. And then play Kobe Mayo at third.
I agree with you. I drafted Kobe Mayo and Barf, and I have still held on to him.
Wow.
So, it's probably been a poor decision because I just got murdered with injuries the last week. But I'm just praying and hoping because, man, I think he's going to be a huge difference maker. There's so much power. It's like 70 grade power. So I really like Kobe Mayo, and I do think he's going to be up here in the next few weeks. So definitely a guy I'd been willing to stash. Kyle Manzardo's showing a little bit of power. I didn't know he had that in him. 4 home runs, hitting .308. Not striking out as Kyle Manzardo doesn't strike out. What point are your Guardians going to bring his ass up?
Yeah, I mean, DeLauder was the one who was lighting the world on fire in spring training, but there was never really any chance that he would start with us. And I don't think DeLauder's coming up even in May. Like, I think he'll probably be up maybe second half, or at least close to that, depending on situations, obviously. But Manzardo's a guy who was pretty polished. I mean, they knew, he was in AAA last year, both with Tampa and Cleveland. He had kind of a weird year because I think his mom died or something, and he was just like really not focused at the plate, which understandable. He got off to a terrible start this year. Like when I had initially checked in on him, he was hitting like 170 with no homers, and then all of a sudden he just came on really quick lately. So I don't think he's going to be in the minors too long. I think maybe he's up, I would say early to mid-May. I think the Guardians are looking like they're going to make a legitimate push this year for the playoffs. And I think they're going to need every bit of offense that they can get, despite the fact that they've somehow sustained themselves with this offense so far. I think Manzardo needs to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think Manzardo is like an elite player in fantasy. I think he's probably a better real life player than he is a fantasy player. But I think it's going to be, Josh Naylor-esque. Like, I mean, it's going to be good batting average with, the high teens, low 20s home runs. Like
Naylor has a bit more power, I think, and will run more. Yeah. But I think, I think they need more protection in there for Naylor and Hosey. Like, we don't have any other big time hitters like Jimenez, but he doesn't have a ton of power. So I think Manzardo can be that guy.
I do too. All right. What about Christian Scott? He's pitching really well as a Mets prospect. They could use a little added, bit to this rotation. What are we thinking about Christian Scott?
Yeah, he's really interesting. I mean, 16.3 K per nine, 1.88 walks per nine. Like, that's beautiful. Like a guy who strikes out a bunch of guys and doesn't walk guys. So, he's a guy who I didn't know before spring training. And then in spring training, he caught a lot of attention. And I saw a lot of people talking about him. Our old buddy who kind of isn't around anymore, Michael Simeone, SP streamer, was talking about it. He's a Christian Scott guy. And that was the first time I was like, oh, who's Christian Scott? So then I started looking at him and I'm like, yeah. Again, he looks like he's really looks like he's ready to play now. Like a low whip guy. He might give up more homers. I mean, his home run rate is kind of crazy right now, but that's, 3.1 homers per nine, small sample silliness. So I'm excited for when he comes up. And a lot of people are thinking he's going to be up at some point in May.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much longer they can run out like Adrian Hauser in this rotation. Like, he should be up by now. I think the hard part is he's not on the 40-man roster, so they're going to have to DFA someone to make room, but they'll figure that out. I just think he's too good of a prospect. And, the Mets, I don't think are necessarily a competitive team for the division this year, but, they can play their way into, a wild card spot if they play things right. So I think they'll give him the opportunity here in the next month or so.
But I'm sure that the Mets think that they are, whether we think they are or not. I mean, they're 12-9 and they're a big market. They're gonna
12-10. They lost tonight.
What was that?
12-10. They lost tonight.
Okay, but they're gonna be trying. Like, they're not a team that's gonna be like, well, we don't need to bring them up because we're not.
I don't know. They were pretty vocal about like, hey, this is a long-term process. We're not going to push things this year. So I don't know if they actually consider themselves contenders.
But they're not losing any service time from him, and it's not like they're rushing him. It's not like he's really young or anything. Like he's
not one of those guys you play service time games with. I think they're just waiting for their spot.
I think he's going to be up within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I think he's going to be up before Memorial Day, would be my guess. James Wood has been unreal good. 2 home runs, 5 stolen bases, hitting 306, 23% strikeout rate. One of the top prospects in the game, much less in the Washington system. Here's the problem. Washington has no reason to start his clock. And I keep getting questions about James Wood, and I'm going to keep saying the same thing. Late summer.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable. Eric Cross has June as his ETA. But it could easily be later than that because, like you said, they definitely don't have anything to play for. I don't know if they're going to be aggressive with him. It's possible that they are, but he's 21 years old. This is a situation where I probably wouldn't be aggressive with him unless he absolutely is like, okay, you have to bring me up now. Like, there's nothing else for me to do in AAA now. So, I don't know. I think he's up, but I don't know if late summer. I would say closer to, maybe like mid-June would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess after the All-Star break. That's,
Okay.
I think they're going to make sure they don't mess with Super 2. I think they're going to try to get that extra year from him, and which is unfortunate because I think he's ready now. I think he would be a really good player right now. But like, there are a lot of people stashing James Wood. I wouldn't do that. I think
He's not the guy I would be stashing. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Kid Povich, he's freaking unreal right now. .83 ERA, .74 WHIP, 42% strikeout rate. He's walking a fair amount of guys, over 10%. Where you at on Povich?
Yeah, it's really just coming down to the walk rate. Now, right now it's at 3.74 walks per nine. Translates to about 11.5 walk percentage. Last year he was at 14.7%, so it's definitely an improvement, but it's only about half the innings. So we'll have to see what he does if he can maintain that. But all through the minors, he's been like a high WHIP guy and high ERA guy, honestly, too. Obviously his 167 BABIP and 96% left on base rate are small sample silliness, so that's going to change. But he's got good stuff. A lot of people are excited about him. He's a pitcher for the Orioles. The Orioles are obviously trying to win this year, but I'm not sure that there's really like a big need there. I mean, granted, they have Suarez in there now. With Irvin, I don't know if they're ready to take him out, but they definitely have with Grayson and Kramer and Burns. They've got 3 pretty solid starters there. So I think he'll be up at some point, but I don't know how soon it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got like an overpowering pitch, which I think is a little bit of a problem, but the command is pretty good. So if I just don't know if the Orioles are going to bring him up, at least not before like Memorial Day. So like I don't know if he's the guy that I'm necessarily waiting on to try to like stash or anything like that. I think this is kind of wait and see what the Orioles do. They tend to, like they've got a number. The Orioles have like a number of guys in their minor leagues that should be up in the majors. I don't think Povich is top 3 on that list. So if you start seeing them like maybe the Heston Kjerstad is like the beginning of the dam breaking, and they're going to start bringing up guys like Stowers. They're going to start bringing up guys like Kobe Mayo, and they maybe bring up Povich. But until I see that, like I'm not going to believe it.
Fair enough.
All right, what's going on in Earth?
Yeah, well, just another week of Glarf crushing it. Got 3 in the top 8 now, including number 2 and 3 overall with Aaron Cumming and Lucas Beery. And Sarah Sanchez in 8th place. We've got Scarf moving up to 2nd place. They've never been that high before, so that's really cool. And one of the newbies, Wharf, in 3rd. Wharf is the only team that's super active on Discord, and like they're always on there talking. Their commissioner Ben has done a really good job with organizing everything there. Love him. They're all very enthusiastic, and I love their name, the Waffle House Area Roto Fantasy.
Yeah, it's the best name. It's the best name.
And the spinner necklace on a Waffle House plate. It's amazing. So like there's a special part of my heart for Wharf. Like I would love to see them finish right up there behind us. So now Barf is in 8th. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about what's going on in Barf right now? How are you guys doing? Do you guys communicate? Do you guys talk at all? Or do you guys just kind of go through the year and
just kind of go through the year?
You guys don't have like a chat or anything that you guys don't talk at all?
I mean, I talk to people individually, but not really about Barf, to be quite honest. Just chat generally.
That's a bummer.
I text regularly with Eno. I text, regularly with Bubba.
Yeah, but if you're not talking about Barf, that's not relevant to me.
No, I don't. I can tell you my pitching staff is unreal and my offense is atrocious is what's happening. Like unreal. Like if you look at me in the overall, I've got like pretty close to a top 10 pitching staff overall. And like maybe one of the worst offenses in all of Earth. Like bottom 20 in offense. Like I cannot buy a hit to save my fucking life. I've got a 205 batting average on this, or no, 218 batting average on the season. It's just I can't get my offense going. So, but I feel like it's going to turn around here at some point for me. A really great pitching day for me. You know why? Because I have Ranger Suarez in bar.
God damn it, Ranger Suarez.
Ranger Suarez and Tariq Skubal pitching today, baby.
You're currently ahead of me, and your offense, though bad as it might be, is still slightly ahead of mine, sadly. So,
I'm very close to 69th overall, which is the goal.
What was?
Very close to 69th overall, which is the goal. So.
Yeah. Remember how you had concerns about my pitching? My pitching has not been the problem. My pitching is actually doing very well without both Spencer Strider and Kyle Bradish somehow. So. I don't know. I have a very deep pitching staff, so it is actually pretty solid. But with a guy like Strider in there, it would be a game changer regardless. But I mean, I've got Littell, Kikuchi, Reagans, Weathers, Waka, Pepio, Jose Soriano, Cutter Crawford, Buto, Bayo, Bradish. And then I've got Ginkel and Evan Phillips, and then Matt Brash is my closer. So it's deep, but it's lacking that ace now. Well, Reagan's kind of, but not after last outing.
He'll be fine.
I think he will be fine too. Yeah, but so Barf is in 8th overall right now, and Tarf is surprisingly in last. Tarf last year was always in the top 3, and there were, I thought, a very strong league, but. Russell Withers, who's a really good player, is close to the bottom in the overall. And that's kind of how the season's gone for Tarf right now. But it's still early, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's super early. I mean, Doug Thorburn is like in 12th in our league, and he was like he was in first place in the TGFBI overall until like the last day. Like, I mean, he's a good player. Like, it's so early. Things are going to change massively, and hopefully somebody takes down you guys.
I mean, that definitely won't happen, but I did take note. 3 teams that talked shit about us that saying that they're going to beat Clarf this year were Surf, 7th place, Barf, 8th place, and Tarf, last place. So,
still early.
It is early, but you guys don't even have a chat where you guys like galvanize and stuff. That's really disappointing. I thought a league, especially one that's been around as long as Barf, I thought you guys would like, make it like we have a chat that's still going. You're not a part of it anymore, but from when we did the Draft Champions league that we had, like it's not even, the league's not even going anymore. We still talk. So I don't know.
Listen, I barely talk to my wife and kids. If you guys think I'm talking to you guys, like, you guys are sorely mistaken.
Don't lie. You and I send love notes to each other all the time.
Yeah. You're special though.
All right. And then just a little shout out to Frank Amarante, who at least going into the day was in first place overall. I don't know if he still is. He is. All right. Frank, way to go, dude. Holding off Lucas Beery by a little bit. And then Paul Martinez of Scarf is in 3rd now. So he passed
and Ray Kuhn, who I record with for the First Fantasy Benefits podcast on Thursdays, in 4th. So
yeah, he was in 1st last time we did this, so he's still up there. Rudy Gamble's in 6th, right behind Aaron Cumming. So strong showing, and I don't see any of you guys unseating us, but I would love the competition.
We will try our best. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Dave, everybody can reach on social media, plug anything you got going on.
Yeah, at RunDMCD on Twitter, add that D, and this is what I have going on. This and tweeting about stuff.
You can follow me on Twitter at Mason FWFB. You can email me or the show, friendsandfantasybenefits@gmail.com. You can read my written work 5 days a week at Fangraphs, so maybe 4 days a week this week, because I might go to bed here in a little bit instead of writing. And then Fantasy Pros, I'm writing 3 days a week. That is going to wrap us up for this episode. For Dave and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.